In Douluo, all the goddesses collapse. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 176. Something is wrong. Such a scene made everyone stunned. They looked at Wu Crossing stupidly, with confused expressions in their minds, such as who am I, where am I, and what am I going to do? With a crowbar, he casually swung it, and nailed the huge beast to the wall. Is this still a human? Is there still a king's law? Is there still law? The other party is probably not a non-human, otherwise how can he have such great strength? Mark and Ranbing also subconsciously looked back. Seeing that this was Wu Crossing's hand again, they were shocked again. First, he used his body to block the bullet without any damage, and then he shot a child with a rifle. No, one shot her spine, and never missed. Now he solved a beast with only a crowbar, which simply subverted their cognition of the 3 iron laws of the lighthouse. Facing the confused people, Wu Crossing didn't care. He turned around and ran outside. Such a funny scene once again caused everyone to be dazed, but fortunately they knew the situation was urgent and didn't stand there to feed the beast. They ran out quickly. Many diary holders in the live broadcast room also twitched when they saw this. Good guy, just pretending to be a pig to eat the tiger. We are willing to call the diary owner the strongest. Wu Crossing ran out and looked around and found that the Wasteland Hunter team outside had already arranged the defense line. He jumped onto a military jeep without thinking. The bad thing is that as the evacuation speed is getting farther and farther, the sound waves are also rapidly decreasing. Mark and Ranbing, who looked back at everything, were just breathing a sigh of relief and suddenly showed an unbelievable look, only to see a person standing under the shoulder of the mountain-like leader, the devouring beast. Seeing that situation, the Wasteland Hunter members who were originally on guard inside all changed their faces and immediately fired and directed the convoy to evacuate. Seeing that the Tico operated so skillfully, although they knew why their women knew how to operate the iron lump, Du Guyan and Ning Rangrong, the 2 men, were jealous before they pouted their mouths. The diary holders who saw the scene all took a deep breath. Wasn't that the devouring beast from the linkage world? Although its power was weak, it was not dead. It had just traveled through the linkage world, and it had cooperated perfectly with the masked man. Wu Crossing saw it, and of course all the diary holders saw it too. The live broadcast screen also had a small close-up. This is. Seeing the figure standing under the shoulder of the devouring beast, Mark and Ranbing were shocked. It had no choice but to roar. A huge sound wave came, vibrating everyone's ears, as if the eardrum was about to be torn off. The convoy evacuated in an orderly manner, and was about to escape the devouring beast's pursuit range. Suddenly, there was a tremor, and a devouring beast as big as a mountain appeared, waving its huge palm, and slapping the surrounding soil. After a while, all the devouring beasts that attacked the vehicle lay on the ground, and an open area appeared around them. When you adjust your body, you still have time to think less, but you are surprised to find that the woman driving at this time has a terrible driving skill, and the machine gun is not facing the attacking beast. The leader level beast appeared. Ah, bad. Wu Crossing looked up at the man, only to see that the other party had short purple hair and a technological mask under his face. It seemed that he could not see your appearance, but from the other party's figure, appearance was obviously not important. Just do it. At the same time, the beast that originally fell up appeared to be resurrected. The head pierced by the bullet gradually stopped healing, and the body also stood up hurriedly, shaking its head. Who is he? Seeing that the surrounding beasts were solved, Fiksu didn't have time to look at Wu Crossing under the car. But he found that you didn't know that woman, and even her clothes were like a member of the lighthouse. No wonder the humans in that world are in dire straits. When facing such a monster, even if the people of Tanfang don't have all kinds of strange weapons in their hands, they can do nothing. As soon as he sat down, the ground shook, and then many extreme beasts appeared on the surrounding mountains, rushing towards here frantically. Fiksu, who was holding the heavy machine gun, was almost thrown out by the opponent's move. He held the armrest of the heavy machine gun tightly with both hands, which made him laugh. While Fiksu was shocked, the trigger in his hand did not stop at all, and the bullets poured out again like a fire snake. Just as he was confused, Mark's voice rang out from the heavy mecha. All convoys, retreat slowly. Fortunately, the drivers had good mental quality. After several dodges, they successfully avoided the rolling boulders and did not cause the car to be destroyed and people to die. 95-27. Fiksu was stunned for a moment and subconsciously thought that the other party was a dustman, but after thinking about it, he shook his head again and again. Wood Crossing was just thinking about how to show off, how to run away, when a beautiful figure jumped under the jeep in front of me, lifted the grey cloth on the roof with both hands, revealing the heavy machine gun with a strong metallic feel underneath. The rolling boulder slammed up and hit the evacuating vehicle. However, that was not the end. After dealing with one, the woman under the car turned the steering wheel sharply and made a handsome 180-degree drift. When she paused, she aimed the heavy machine gun in her hand at another extreme beast. Although he had some doubts in his heart, and the other party seemed to be a diary holder, Wood Crossing's movements were not fast at all. He shifted gears and stepped on the accelerator. In an instant, the jeep roared like a beast and rushed out at a high speed. Similarly, Wood Crossing saw this figure through the front mirror, and his mouth curled up slightly. Wood Crossing heard this and turned the steering wheel again. He stepped on the accelerator and followed the jeep at a speed of 700 yards, following the convoy loaded with supplies. Fiksu did not hesitate and immediately pressed the trigger. The bullets whizzed out and hit the running beast one by one. The beast fell to the ground. 95-27. Wood Crossing replied with a smile. The man was Fiksu, the sniper of the Wasteland Hunter Brigade, and one of the two little masked beauties in the spirit cage. But Wood Crossing soon found something wrong. Is there no one with a fair skin like me among the dust people? Is there no one with such clean and tidy clothes? Drive slowly. The man put his hands under the heavy machine gun and shouted to Wood Crossing. Although the leader level beast was a little smaller, its action was not slow. It chased and evacuated the convoy at full speed. I naturally know who is standing at the leader level devouring beast. It is Boss Bayuki, a man who has lived for over 100 years. If Wood Crossing's actions are acceptable to the two of them, then the figure standing under the devouring beast's shoulders is incredible. Chapter 177 exclusive. It was because Bayuki was not looking at him, but at Mark's position, plus the live panel. Her expression could not tell any emotion. Although he was not so narcissistic that all the diary holders revolved around him, he was also the owner of the diary, and he was broadcasting live the whole time, so it was unreasonable for the other party to not have any abnormality. If it was said that Ranbing did not have a copy of the diary, it was reasonable for Fiksu not to have a copy of the diary, but it was unreasonable for Bayuki not to have a copy of the diary. With an attitude of not giving up, Wood Crossing glanced at Fiksu behind him, and then looked at the car not far away, and said, "Beauty, you drive the car." Fiksu was stunned when she heard Wood Crossing's words, but she did not answer. She reached out and grabbed the backseat frame and jumped lightly to the co-pilot. When Wood Crossing saw it, he also let go of the steering wheel and passed by the other party intimately. Wood Crossing, who switched to the co-pilot seat, looked at the vehicles speeding side by side and then stood up immediately. Then, in the corners of Mark, Ranbing, and Fiksu's eyes, he jumped onto the opposite vehicle. Seeing this guy's actions, all the hunters were stunned. This was a speeding car, and the other party just jumped onto another car. Is he trying to be so cool? Wood Crossing jumped behind the opposite car, and then came to the back of the co-pilot under the gaze of everyone. At this time, the co-pilot of this car was a little lolly beauty named Erica. Erica, who was stared at by Wood Crossing, paused slightly. Although the man in front of her was very handsome and pleasing to the eye, she didn't know him. Moreover, so many companions were staring at her. Even if she wanted to chat with her, she had to go to a place where no one was. "Beauty, do you know me?" Wood Crossing frowned when he saw Erica's reaction, but still asked. Erica widened her eyes. Is the man in front of her crazy? How can he chat with a girl like this? I don't know him. Although she thought this guy was weird, Erica still shook her head. Hearing Erica's answer, Wood Crossing felt even more strange. The diary holders in the diary copy were confused at first when they saw Wu Crossing's actions, but later they saw him approaching an obviously underage girl, looking her up and down, and they all said pooh. I didn't expect this guy to not let go of even the little girl. Not to mention Du Guyan. She clenched her fists and cursed Wu Crossing loudly in her heart. It would be fine if he was interested in old women at first, but now even the little girl has become interested in him. Should he be so eager to do it in front of the diary holders of Zhutian Diary? People who don't know would think that they can't satisfy this guy. Although, alone, he is indeed not a match, but he can't act like he has never seen a woman. When he comes back, he must unite with Ling Ling to squeeze this bastard dry and make him attract bees and butterflies everywhere. Wu Crossing didn't know what Du Guyan was thinking. Now he was communicating with the system. System, what's going on? Why don't these women in the linkage world have diary copies? Wu Crossing asked his doubts. Just when Wu Crossing had no hope. After all, his system was very arrogant, and whether to answer or not depended entirely on his mood. But he didn't expect that the system would sound a reminder in his mind. Ding, the population base of the linkage world is too small, and the diary copy is only allocated to one person. If the host wants more women to have copies, they can use the diary invitation card. Wu Crossing, who got the answer, was slightly stunned. The system meant that only the light bearer owned the linkage world. No wonder he found something wrong, but the small population base and the restriction of diary holders are quite playful. Are you worried that all these beauties will have it, and the entire linkage will become your base camp? As for the diary invitation card, he has 3 in his hand, so he can only say that it depends on fate. Looking back, Wu Crossing, who was sitting down, seemed to have thought of something, and hurriedly said on the diary live broadcast. Don't get me wrong, I just wanted to confirm one thing just now, and I'm not interested in the little girl in front of me. Compared to Lali, I prefer the royal sister, the queen, and the empress. In order to avoid misunderstanding of his own personality by the diary holders of the All Heaven comics, Wu Crossing hurriedly explained. Ling Yuan, Keisha, Ruthless Emperor, Du Guyan, this bastard is really like that. Bibi Dang, isn't the Pope good? Must you want the queen? The empress? Oh, by the way, I just asked the system, and the system said that only the light bearer Fandi has a copy of the diary in the linkage world. I also approached that little girl to confirm this. With Wu Crossing's answer, the women finally understood that the other party was because of this matter. Du Guyan, that's okay, I misunderstood my husband, and when you come back, I won't let Ling Ling punish you together. Wu Crossing, ITM. Not to mention the reactions of the women in the live broadcast. Mark has taken off the mecha, got out of it, and then sat down opposite Wu Crossing. With sharp eyes, he looked at Wu Crossing for a few times, and then slowly asked, who are you? As soon as Mark said this, Ranbing also stared at Wu Crossing closely. The man in front of her really shocked her. She still remembered the scene of waving her hand and nailing the extreme devourer to death with a crowbar. Wu Crossing. Wu Crossing directly said his name. You are not from the lighthouse, are you? Mark asked again. No. Wu Crossing shook his head and then said, you don't have to guess my identity. Even if I tell you, you won't know. Anyway, I'm here to help you. Help us? Mark was stunned, and then his face was strange. He remembered the scene of this guy just now, who could easily deal with the devouring beast, but ran faster than anyone else. Yeah. Wu Crossing nodded, then looked at the dusty crowd in front of him, looked into the distance and said, such days will soon be over. Wu Crossing's ambiguous words made Ranbing and his group look at each other, not knowing what this man meant. Did you see the leader level devouring beast just now? Mark saw that the other party seemed unwilling to mention his identity, so he turned to ask. You want to ask about the figure standing on the shoulder of the devouring beast, right? Wu Crossing retracted his gaze and asked with a smile. You know? Mark's eyes lit up. Her name is Bayuki, a survivor living on the ground. Wu Crossing did not hide and told Bayuki's identity. Mark paused again, then asked, so you are also a survivor on the ground? Almost. Wu Crossing answered casually. The conversation between the two shocked the hunters in the car. There are actually survivors on the ground? They have always believed that the lighthouse is the last spark of mankind. And how did the survivors living on the ground avoid the extreme beasts? Chapter 178 Lighthouse. During the conversation, the convoy had passed through the sandstorm, and what came into view in front of them was a huge spiral cone floating in the air. It was the aerial shelter of the linkage world, the lighthouse. Isn't it spectacular? This is the crystallization of human wisdom, the aerial city built. With the appearance of the lighthouse, Wuhun Crossing began to popularize science in the live broadcast. In addition to the technological world, whether it is the world of high-level or low-level martial arts, or the women of Douluo Continent, they were deeply shocked by the scene before them. Can the behemoth in front of them really be built by wisdom alone? But before they could come to their senses, Wuhun Crossing's next sentence almost made the women bite their tongues off. Of course, although this lighthouse is spectacular, it is still a little bit worse than the top technological world. For example, the Skyblade battleship of Queen Kesha in the Super God world is much more exaggerated than this. Is it still a little worse? Everyone couldn't imagine how huge the Skyblade battleship mentioned by the diary owner should be. In short, many diary holders have opened their eyes and are shocked by the things in the technological world. The convoy soon arrived directly below the lighthouse, and the lift had landed on the ground. Facing the return of the wasteland hunters, the entire lighthouse was filled with warm applause. The safe return of the wasteland hunters means that in the next period of time, their shelter will not worry about energy, food, and medical care. Although they are still living in poverty, it is much better than feeding the extreme beasts. So whether it is the upper people or the dust people, when they see Mark coming back with rich supplies, they all show a happy smile. Of course, some of them don't look happy at all. No matter where or which world, there will always be some people who don't know what they are talking about, such as Charles, the leader of the Light and Shadow Society. Looking at the beloved Mark, he only thinks that it is all his blessing that makes the Wasteland Hunter team safe and sound, and so that they can harvest so many supplies. For an organization like the Light and Shadow Society, in fact, in Wuhun Crossing's eyes, it meets the needs of the doomsday world. Under the strong survival crisis, spiritual sustenance and faith in the heart can comfort everyone in their hearts and prevent them from collapsing. Looking back at his past life, it was the same. Whether it was the Eastern powers or the Western world, there were all kinds of myths and legends. But the premise is that at least the church that truly serves the people can be called a good church. Charles, for example, regards the Light and Shadow Society as his tool and as his right to oppress the dust people. That is pure garbage. The convoy entered the lighthouse material distribution room. Under Mark's instructions, the wasteland hunters began to count the materials, while the dust people were doing the carrying work, transporting them to different warehouses according to various resource lists. Wuhun Crossing also slowly jumped off the car and looked at the surrounding environment carefully. To be honest, after a year in the Douluo world, he suddenly entered this world full of technology. He was not a lighthouse person, and he helped the wasteland hunters a lot, so no one dared to let him work. When Wu Xian was looking at the lighthouse, 4068 also walked down from the gravity body. Looking at the mecha in front of him, he touched it reluctantly. After the previous experience, and after returning to the lighthouse, and feeling the love of so many people, he firmly believed that he was not far from becoming a member of the Wasteland Hunters, and he couldn't help but say that he was no worse than Mark. However, his words made Jeff, the captain of the Wasteland Hunters, unhappy. He immediately walked up, flipped the other party to the ground, and snorted, "You still want to be powerful? You are no worse than Captain Mark. I'm lucky I didn't cause you trouble." 4068, who was flipped to the ground, heard it and said angrily, "If it weren't for me, could you bring back these supplies?" What? Hearing this, Jeff the Wasteland Hunter's face sank. Although the other party made some contributions and helped a little, it was a joke to say that these supplies were his credit. In addition, the other party was a dustman, and this righteous tone made him even more unhappy, and he said, "I think you are tired of living." After saying that, he was about to take action, but suddenly several figures came from the door, which made him subconsciously startled, and did not step forward to teach the other party a lesson. I saw several law priests wearing the clothes of the Light and Shadow Society came forward slowly stood behind 4068, and then grabbed the other party's arm and pressed him to the ground. Such a scene made Mark and Ranbing, who were originally distributing supplies, stop immediately, and also made Wu Crossing on the side look over with interest. At the moment when 4068 was pressed by the law priest, several figures appeared again. A woman wearing a green robe, a mask with only the upper half, and high heels walked in, accompanied by two people on both sides of her. One was tall and mighty, holding a cane and authority, and an old man holding a tablet device in both hands. Seeing the few people coming, whether they were dustmen, upper people, or members of the wasteland hunters, they were all shocked. It's the light bearer. Why is she here? Seeing the woman leading the group, everyone whispered. The light bearer came to 4068, reached out to take the tablet device from the law priest next to him, scanned 4068, and his information appeared on the panel one by one. Looking at the data on it, the red lips under the light bearer's mask opened slightly and said, "Execution." In an instant, the two law priests who heard the words of the light bearer immediately pulled out the whips from their waists and beat 4068. 4068 immediately screamed, but still shouted unconvinced, "Why are you beating me?" The law priest didn't care about that, as if he didn't hear what the other party said, and continued to whip him. This scene immediately attracted the attention of several dust people, especially 4277. Seeing 4068 being beaten, he was about to rush out, but was stopped by his companion 4079, who said, "Don't go over there. Why are they beating people?" 4277 asked anxiously again. 4079 didn't know why and shook his head, but he understood the tyranny of the Light and Shadow Society, so he held on tightly. It wasn't until the law priest had beaten for a long time that the tall figure on the side said, "Stop." The light bearer then stepped forward, looked at the bruised 4068, and said lightly, "The lighthouse law stipulates that the dust people have no right to touch the weapons of the upper people in any form. Surround them and punish them with 12 whips." Originally, after the incident of Wu Crossing's diary copy, the light bearer rarely appeared in the eyes of the public, and her style of doing things was more low-key. But this time was an exception, because she couldn't wait for the arrival of my lord. As for why he ordered his subordinates to whip 4068, it was because Wu Crossing had shown a very bad impression of this guy in the live broadcast room before. He is not a saint, but a vulgar one, and likes beautiful women. Maybe he will slowly change with experience in the future, but not now. So when he was prying the hatch of 4068, he said something very impolite. This scene was naturally discovered by the light bearer. For my master, she was willing to be a bad person. Chapter 179 page chapter. I just helped them. 4068 said again in dissatisfaction. But just as he finished speaking, he was whipped by a law priest, which made him speechless. "Master Higuangs, this kid is stubborn. Why not ask them to take him back to the law school and discipline him properly?" After saying this, the law priest wanted to whip 4068. But at this time, he was stopped by Mo Cheng, the leader of the wasteland hunters. Seeing that he was stopped, the law priest looked coldly. Seeing that it was a member of the wasteland hunters, he immediately waved his hand and slapped him, saying angrily, "Let go." But Mo Cheng did not let go. He had long been fed up with the tyranny of the Light and Shadow Society. Seeing that the other party did not let go, the huge figure next to him, Shalafu of the Light and Shadow Society, was about to step forward, but was also stopped by Higuangs. She just wanted to punish 4068 for my master, but she didn't want to cause the displeasure of the wasteland hunters. "Let go," Higuang said lightly. At this time, Mark had already stepped forward and said to Mo Cheng, "Mo Cheng, let go." Hearing the captain's words, Mo Cheng finally let go of the hand of the priest. Seeing that the other party let go, the Higuang slowly said to the priest, "You can go back." After saying that, without waiting for everyone's response, she walked in front of Wu Crossing with an alluring cat step. Then, in front of everyone's astonishment, she bowed solemnly to Wu Crossing. "Fanti, meet my master." When everyone heard this, including Mark and Ranbing, they all showed shocked expressions. Not to mention them, even Wu Crossing's mind was full of question marks when he heard this. When did he become the master of the other party? "My master, you have come from a faraway place. so let Fandy take you to your residence. The Higuangs didn't care about the shocked hunters and still went her own way. Is there any misunderstanding between us? Wu Crossing said with shame. He is now live streaming. He has just arrived in the world of Linglong and has inexplicably accepted a maid believer. Although this maid is very pleasing to the eye and has a proud figure, especially the mysterious feeling of wearing a mask, it attracts men to want to find out. But if Yanzi, Lingyuan, and the little witch see it, won't they be jealous? My lord, there is no misunderstanding. Fandy is your most loyal servant. The light bearer replied respectfully again. This time, even the people of the Light and Shadow Society were dumbfounded. What's wrong with Lord Lightbearer? He is so respectful to a man. Is he going to betray the leader? When Wu Crossing listened to the affirmative answer of the Lightbearer, he understood why the other party was like this. In the original anime, she seemed to be brainwashed very deeply. Suddenly seeing the miraculous diary copy, she regarded herself as a belief, which is explainable. As if he had figured it out, Wu Crossing nodded and said, then I'll trouble you. My lord, please follow Fandy. Upon hearing this, the half face of the light bearer under the mask showed a little joy. Wu Crossing responded, then said hello to Mark, and followed the light bearer out of the hall, leaving only a group of messy hunters and the people of the Light and Shadow Church. He originally planned to stay in the lighthouse for 2 days. In addition to meeting the light bearer who holds a diary, he also wanted to learn about Xing from her mouth, so that he could make some preparations to complete the task. And when he learned that there was only one diary holder in this world, the light bearer, he had an idea in his mind. That was to push the other party to the position of city lord. After all, his mission to destroy Xing was to save the people in this world from dire straits. After solving the Xing issue, someone had to stand up to coordinate the overall situation. The light bearer was his pen pal, so he was naturally the first choice. Of course, his original plan was to let Bayuki do it, but because the other party did not have a copy of the diary, he changed his mind temporarily. This is why he followed Mark to the lighthouse. Anyway, the light bearer is a high-level person who is in charge of the laws and order of the lighthouse. In addition, the light bearer's admiration for him now made him more determined to push her to be the city lord. He did this for the sake of the human beings in this world, not because the light bearer would do it when there was something to do, and the city lord's identity was more exciting. What's going on? Who is that guy? Jingnan also came to Mark at this time, looking at the backs of Wu Crossing and the light bearer leaving, and asked. She just got the order from Lord Morgan to come out of the command center and ask Mark to report on the work, but she didn't expect to see such a weird scene. Mark smiled bitterly and shook his head and said, I don't know either. He was also confused now. You know, the light bearer is the second in command of the Light and Shadow Society. Usually, she has no feelings in the lighthouse. Although she rarely appears in the Wasteland Hunter base in the past year, the prestige she accumulated in the past is still fresh in the memory of many people. And such a woman, who originally only obeyed Charles' orders, is now respectful to Wu Crossing who met on the ground, which really makes him confused. Isn't that guy from the lighthouse? Jingnan asked again. No, he's a person living on the ground. Mark nodded. People living on the ground? Although Jingnan had some guesses, he still took a breath of cold air. There were actually human survivors on the ground. Not only him, I also saw a human standing on the shoulders of the devouring beast. Mark revealed another explosive news. While talking here, Wu Crossing had already followed the light bearer to the place where the upper people lived. When he came to the door of a room, the light bearer stretched out his white hand and pressed the handprint lock in front of the door. A beeping sound came, and the door of the room opened. The door of the room was opened, and what came into view was a room that was not big, but very clean and tidy, spotless. My lord, Fandy can only arrange for you to live in such a room for the time being. After entering the room, the light bearer saw Wu Crossing looking at him, and said in a very apologetic tone. Although she was the second in command of the Light and Shadow Association, and had considerable authority, this was already the most advanced residence in the lighthouse. It's okay, it's good. Wu Crossing waved his hand. It was already very good to be able to live in such a room in the end times. Besides, there is a balcony and a separate bathroom. What else is there to be dissatisfied about? Upon hearing this, He Guang's breathed a sigh of relief and then knelt down on his knees in front of Wu Crossing. "What are you doing?" Seeing He Guang's actions, Wu Crossing moved suddenly. "My lord, you just experienced a sandstorm. Let Fandy wash the mud off your body." After He Guang's finished speaking, he was about to undress Wu Crossing. Being served by a woman like He Guang's, Wu Crossing couldn't help swallowing a few mouthfuls of saliva. Suddenly, he thought of something and hurriedly turned off the live broadcast. What a joke. The following content is a paid chapter, not for the majority of pen pals. When they saw Wu Crossing suddenly turn off the live broadcast, the women watching the live broadcast were all stunned, and then they subconsciously spit and their faces turned red. They couldn't help but have a certain picture in their minds. This bastard. Looking at the live broadcast meeting on the black screen, Ling Yuan, Bibi Dang, Du Guyan, and Ning Rong from the Douluo world all cursed fiercely. Chapter 180. Let the light bearer become the city lord. After walking out of the room, Wu Crossing had changed into a clean modern outfit. He looked energetic and showed off his impeccable handsome figure. The light bearer beside him was confused and almost couldn't help climbing onto my lord's thick chest several times. There was no way. The human survivors of the lighthouse didn't have Wu Crossing's handsome face, deep and bright eyes, and the extraordinary temperament that he had never had in the end of the world. If it weren't for my lord's order, she would have wanted to go to the morning hall immediately and have a hearty battle with my lord. Facing the light bearer who was leading the way in front of him, Wu Crossing also set his sights on the other party. He already had quite a few women, but in terms of walking posture, the other party was definitely the most seductive to men. This seductive catwalk, among all the beautiful women he had seen, no one could match it for the time being. Under the leadership of the light bearer, Wu Crossing followed her all the way to the meeting hall of the lighthouse. At this time, a group of senior executives had gathered in the meeting hall. The city lord headed by Morgan, the city defense commander Victor, the captain of the wasteland hunter Mark and his master instructor, as well as Charles of the Light and Shadow Society, engineer Jessica, the commander of the control room Jingnan, the medical and ecological director Carrie, etc. are all here. With the arrival of Wu Crossing, all those who were originally discussing the hunting emperor operation stopped and looked over. Especially Charles, when he saw his deputy, the light bearer, standing behind Wu Crossing with a respectful face. His face became very ugly. At first, when he heard the report from his subordinates, his deputy seemed to admire the humans from the ground very much, and he thought it was nonsense, but now it seems that it is confirmed to be true, which makes him feel very shameless. He is the head of the Light and Shadow Society. It's okay for his deputy not to believe in the Light and Shadow Society, but now he actually believes in a human survivor from the ground. How will the people in the lighthouse see it? How will the wasteland hunters see it? And how will his father see it? They will think that he doesn't know how to discipline and can't even manage his subordinates. "Fanty, you disappoint me," Charles said to the light bearer who came, suppressing his anger. However, the light bearer ignored him and kept his eyes on my lord. Everyone didn't know what Wu Crossing, who came to the lighthouse from the ground, was going to do, and why he was brought to the meeting by the light bearer without any prior notice. "I didn't expect so many people to come." "That's great. I have something to tell you." Before Morgan could speak, Wu Crossing came to the front, glanced at everyone, and said. Morgan heard this and looked at Wu Crossing with a serious expression. "Are you the survivor from the ground?" He knew that there were survivors on the ground. Before he became the city lord, he had contacted Bayuki, but at this time, he didn't know why the survivors on the ground came to the lighthouse this time. "That's right." Wu Crossing smiled casually, not caring about the other party's identity as the city lord. "What's the matter with you coming to the lighthouse this time?" Morgan was surprised when he saw Wu Crossing, who was calm and composed. Wu Crossing glanced at Morgan and said calmly, "In order to help you solve the Xing, no longer be harassed by the devouring beasts, and retake this continent." "What?" Morgan was stunned when he heard Wu Crossing's words, and even the senior executives were shocked by his words. It seemed that in the eyes of the other party, Xing was something that could be destroyed at will, so how could they not be surprised? Even Mark and Ranbing, who had heard Wu Crossing say that they didn't have to live in hiding like this, were also trembling. Is this guy serious? Before, they just thought that the other party was joking. Although the other party behaved differently from ordinary people, they didn't think that Xingsuan could be solved. After all, Xingsuan is a place where devouring beasts are cultivated. There are countless devouring beasts there, not to mention the leader level ones. There are also many king level ones. It is impossible for humans to enter. Even various hot weapons can't do it. So where does this man get the confidence? You are so arrogant. Just you? Charles was the first to say disdainfully after hearing it. Of course. Wood Crossing raised his lips slightly and said confidently, I'm enough. Where did this arrogant boy come from? Guards, take him away. Victor, the commander-in-chief of the city defense, heard Wood Crossing's arrogant words and thought that the boy in front of him was not smart. But just when he called the guards to take him away, Morgan, who was sitting above, stopped. Morgan looked at Wood Crossing and said seriously, Sir, are you sure you are not joking? That's right. Wood Crossing said confidently again. How to prove it? Morgan stared at Wood Crossing closely and asked again. Just relying on my strength. After Wood Crossing finished speaking, his aura burst out, and a terrifying energy wave spread out in an instant, blowing away the people around him, and making them step back several steps. Only after doing all this did he retract the energy pressure. Are you a human or a ghost? At this time, all the senior executives present looked at Wood Crossing, as if he were a monster. They are all human beings in the technological world. They are not superstitious, do not trust ghosts and gods, and only believe in science. The situation of Wood Crossing has obviously overturned the cognition of science. Morgan seemed to have thought of something, and was not too surprised, because he had seen it in Bayuki before. It's just that the other party's performance was not as exaggerated as Wood Crossing. You came here to discuss this matter? You want us to assist you? Morgan subconsciously said you, obviously mistaking Wood Crossing for the survivors on the ground of Bayuki. As long as you have someone take me to the entrance of the Xingsun, the rest will be left to me. There is another request. Wood Crossing said lightly. You say. Hearing the other party say to take him to the entrance of the Xingsun, Morgan has believed it a little. Are you planning to abdicate and let the wise man take over? Wood Crossing asked. Morgan was stunned and then subconsciously nodded. Yes. In this case, I have a candidate, that is, let her become the lord of the lighthouse. Wood Crossing pointed to the light bearer behind him. When the light bearer heard my lord's words, he was also stunned, but soon became excited by my lord's appreciation. Impossible. Before Morgan could answer, Charles on the side stood up to stop him. The position of City Lord was a position he was determined to get, so how could he let someone else do it, let alone give it to his former adjutant? You have no right to speak here. Wood Crossing said coldly, and his aura burst out again, sweeping straight towards Charles. In an instant, Charles was like a kite with a broken string, blown away by the air pressure, and hit the wall heavily. Chapter 181, Blinding Supplies. Wood Crossing had no good feelings towards the guy in front of him, but rather he was disgusted. If the other party had not been of some use, he might not have shown mercy and directly rejected him. Faced with Wood Crossing's impolite behavior, Morgan's face changed. After all, Charles was his son. As for the wasteland hunters, although they were very happy that Charles was taught a lesson, they could not show it now, because it was a matter related to the lighthouse. I'm not discussing with you, but giving you an ultimatum. Wood Crossing said coldly, his tone full of unquestionable. Morgan's face changed again for Wood Crossing's overbearing words, and even a group of senior executives were unhappy, and Mark also frowned. Of course, there was an exception. That was the engineer Jessica, with heart-shaped eyes. Wood Crossing was handsome, and with the momentum he released, he was so overbearing that it was easy to revive the girl's heart. It seems like he is going to the morning hall with him. Charles, who was thrown out, finally got up from the ground and immediately roared, "Guards, guards, where the hell is he? Come and catch this kid." The guards outside the door heard the noise inside and immediately ran in. However, when they looked at the scene in front of them, they were a little overwhelmed and had to focus their attention on the light bearer. That's right, it was the light bearer, not the city lord Morgan, let alone Charles. In the past year, the light bearer has done everything right for the coming of our lord and to promote the faith of our lord. At least, through the position of the second in command of the Light and Shadow Society, and the control of all the laws and order of the lighthouse, she has bribed most of the guards, as well as many priests and many believers. Take Charles away, the light bearer said coldly. Upon hearing this, the guard immediately stepped forward and held Charles in front of him, as if he were a prisoner. Seeing this scene, whether it was Victor, the commander-in-chief of the city defense, or the city lord Morgan, Mark and others, they all changed color. Is the light bearer going to rebel? When were the guards bribed by the other party? Was Wu Crossing's arrival this time premeditated, in order to seize the position of city lord? Fanti, what are you doing? Charles was completely confused and said angrily. He had never been in charge of the lighthouse, and had always handed it over to the light bearer to manage. Unexpectedly, today he not only discovered that the other party had rebelled, but also bribed a large number of guards. It was also because Charles was only concerned with fighting for power, and wanted to become the city lord, that it was particularly easy for the light bearer to recruit the believers of my lord. In addition, the rewards obtained from the copy of my lord's diary were even more beneficial to those guards, those priests, and those believers. Otherwise, how could it be so easy to win over so many guards and become my lord's loyal servants with just verbal promises? Take it down. The light bearer spoke with an expressionless face, without any response to Charles' anger. Since my lord has made her the city lord, she must also show her deployment in the past year, and must not disappoint my lord's trust in her. The guards took Charles away without thinking, and ignored him, no matter how he scolded or shouted. Victor had the ugliest look on his face when he saw what the city defense guards were doing. After all, these guards, strictly speaking, were his direct subordinates. Unexpectedly, he was unknowingly lured over by the light bearer Fanti and obeyed her. Wu Crossing, you're going a bit too far. Mark also stood up at this time and said solemnly. He never thought that a good parliament would become a palace coup, and he never expected that the light bearer could actually recruit so many confidants. Hearing Mark's words, Wu Crossing smiled faintly and said, the light bearer can lead the entire lighthouse to live a prosperous life, no longer troubled by food, no longer limited by materials. Why can't he become the city lord? How can we believe this? If it is as Wu Crossing said, then the light bearer is indeed qualified to be the city lord. After all, the capable one will take the throne. But the premise is that, whether Wu Crossing can destroy the whirlwind, whether the light bearer can make the people of the lighthouse live a prosperous life, no longer troubled by food, and no longer threatened by the extreme beast, are just one-sided words of the other party. He admitted that he was shocked by the strength shown by the other party, but this force cannot represent everything. Morgan was also staring at Wu Crossing at this time, and slowly said, if Fanti can really do what you said, it doesn't matter if I give her the position of city lord. Fanti, give them a long look. Wu Crossing was waiting for this moment, and immediately said to the light bearer after hearing Morgan's words, yes, my lord. The light bearer said respectfully, then walked to an empty position, and a ring in his hand flashed a light. This ring is the sole guide of the Douluo world. It was given to her by Wu Crossing in the room just now. It was bought with a lot of food and various supplies at a high price in Xiandao City. As the light flashed, everyone showed shocked expressions again. They saw piles of items appearing in the originally huge open area, and instantly filled the entire Parliament Hall. This is space technology. Seeing the light bearer come up with so many supplies like magic, everyone was dumbfounded, and the engineer Jessica was even more unbelievable. Knowing the technology, she understood the exaggeration of space technology. The technology that only existed in theory was actually displayed in her eyes. A small ring can actually hold so many things. How did they conquer it? In order to confirm whether the scene in front of them was true or false, some people even touched it with their hands. Some people even opened the boxes and bags, which were full of various supplies. These supplies are several times more than what the wasteland hunters collected this time, enough to supply the people in the lighthouse for half a year. However, the shock was not over yet. The light bearer slowly returned to Wu Crossing's back and spoke again. This place is too small, and we can't show too much. The supplies my lord gave me are dozens of times more than what you see now. The place is too small, and we can't show too much. Hearing this, many senior executives took a breath of cold air again and looked at Wood Crossing in disbelief. This conference hall can be said to be very large, equivalent to a football field. The other party said it was too small, and also said that the supplies in hand were dozens of times as much. How did they do it? Morgan took a deep breath to recover from the shock. He didn't know what to say to the man in front of him, but he was also a sensible city lord and really wanted to make the people of the lighthouse live better. Otherwise, Mark would not be the next city lord in the original plot, instead of his own son. I agree to what you said, but before that, you have to destroy the spiciness first. Morgan made a decision in his heart. Chapter 182 Snow. What happened in the meeting hall was not spread in the lighthouse. Only the top few senior executives knew about it. Therefore, Wood Crossing wandered around the lighthouse the next day, as if nothing had happened. Originally, the light bearer planned to follow him, but because of my master's attention, in order to become a qualified city lord, and not to disappoint my master, he went to Morgan's place, to learn all the management work of the city lord's affairs. In her eyes, it was a done deal for my master to destroy Xing. While wandering around, Wood Crossing unknowingly came to the place where the hunters were trained. Seeing them busy training one by one, he also became interested. Walking to the shooting range, looking at the guns on the stand, Wood Crossing took them in his hands and played with them. As a man who once lived in modern times, there is no one who doesn't like guns, and he is no exception. Before completing the mission and returning, he must get a few guns and a heavy anti-material sniper rifle. Although this thing, without the blessing of soul power, can't cause much harm to the soul master with the martial soul, at least it can be cool. Just as Wood Crossing was thinking, a fragrant breeze blew over, and then a somewhat cold voice sounded in his ears. I heard from Penny that you are very good at shooting. Wood Crossing turned around and saw that the person who came was Fiksu, the most outstanding sniper in the Wasteland Hunter team. Not bad, Wood Crossing said without comment. How about we have a competition? She had seen Wood Crossing's driving skills before. He was indeed an old driver. She was so happy that she took off on the spot. It was a rare experience that she could harvest the devouring beasts crazily just by pressing the trigger. Later, she heard Penny say that the other party's shooting skills were also very good. The arrogant Fiksu had the idea of competing in her heart. Okay. Wood Crossing nodded and agreed to the other party's competition. Anyway, he also wanted to play with guns, no matter what kind of gun. What kind of firearm do you use? Seeing that the other party agreed, Fiksu asked. Wood Crossing said casually, whatever, we'll compete in whatever you say. Fiksu was slightly stunned, then looked at the pistol in Wood Crossing's hand, and then said, then let's compete in the pistol first. Okay. Wood Crossing responded, and then stretched out his hand like a gentleman and said, ladies first. Ladies first. This made Fiksu stunned again. It was the first time she heard such a word, which made her originally curious heart even more curious. However, since the other party said so, she didn't pretend to be hypocritical, and picked up a pistol that was exactly the same as the one in Wood Crossing's hand from the stand. Perhaps the movement here attracted everyone's attention, and all the wasteland hunters who were training gathered around. When they learned that the guy coming from the ground in front of them wanted to compete with Fiksu in shooting, they opened their mouths in surprise. Where did this guy get the confidence to compete with Fiksu in shooting? You know, Fiksu is recognized by the wasteland hunters as the most proficient shooter of various firearms. Even Ranbing can't compare with him. Start now. Fiksu asked again. Yeah. Wood Crossing nodded. Seeing this, Fiksu did not hesitate, raised her arm, and fired 6 shots at the target in front of her. Bang, bang, bang. 6 bullets, without exception, all hit the center point, all 10 rings. As expected of the goddess Fiksu, this shooting skill is simply amazing. Seeing Fiksu hit all the bullseyes, both the wasteland hunters and the new recruits were shocked. Wow, Sister Fiksu, you are so amazing. The little lolly Erica who was teaching the gravity body to the new recruits just now also exclaimed in the crowd. Of course, she is not bad, and she is also very good at operating the gravity body. It is hard to imagine that such a little lolly would be so proficient in such a huge thing as the gravity body. It's just that her shooting skills are much worse than Fiksu. Mark is more comprehensive, with the strongest comprehensive ability among all the wasteland hunters, and even more outstanding leadership. Fiksu had no expression under her mask, and she seemed to have not heard Erika's words. Instead, she turned her head and looked at Wood Crossing. "It's your turn." "Okay." Wood Crossing smiled, raised his pistol, looked at the target in front of him, and then pressed the trigger continuously. In an instant, bullets were fired continuously, and flames continued to appear in the center of the target. When the hunters saw this scene, their jaws dropped again. Did they all hit the bullseye? Just when everyone thought that the pistol competition was a draw, Fiksu's body trembled slowly. She could clearly see through the mask that there was only a trace where the opponent shot. This meant that the opponent not only hit the 10 rings, but also the location of the same bullet hole. "I lost." Fiksu stared at the target for a while and said lightly. With such accuracy, there was no need to continue the competition. She knew clearly that she was not a little bit behind the opponent. Don't underestimate these 6 bullets. Only a sharpshooter knows that it's easy to hit 10 rings, but it's basically impossible to hit the same point. Everyone was confused when this was said. Why did Fiksu admit defeat just after the competition? Seeing everyone's puzzled look, I don't know, when the chief instructor Ellen came here and said unhappily, "You guys are really embarrassing me. You don't have any eyesight at all. Didn't you see that there was only one mark on the target that the other party shot?" Hiss. After Ellen's reminder, everyone reacted and immediately looked at the target in the distance. Sure enough, they saw that there was only one mark on the target that Wood Crossing shot. After waking up, the hunters looked at Wood Crossing with different eyes. No wonder Fiksu admitted defeat. What kind of monster is this? Even a machine can't be so accurate without the slightest deviation. What are you doing? Not training well, lazy here. Just as everyone was talking, Mark and his deputy Ranbing came over from the crowd. When he saw Wood Crossing, Mark was also slightly surprised. What happened in the meeting room yesterday gave him a big shock. Whether it was the strength shown by the other party or the supplies that the light bearer later made, they all brought him an unprecedented shock. However, it is also his greatest wish to let the people of the lighthouse live a happy life, so he is not actually interested in the position of the city lord or who can become the city lord. "Captain Mark, you are here." Fiksu and Wood Crossing just had a gunfight, and Fiksu actually lost. The hunters saw Captain Mark show up and immediately explained. "A gunfight? Fiksu lost." Mark didn't have time to be stunned when he heard what happened, but he and Ranbing were not too surprised that Fiksu lost to Wood Crossing. After all, yesterday, they saw with their own eyes the other party's amazing gunfighting. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 183 Competition. Seeing that Captain Mark and Deputy Captain Ranbing were not surprised at all, the hunters were extremely surprised. "You don't really think Wood Crossing is just a marksman, right?" Engineer Jessica had noticed Wood Crossing when he just arrived. Seeing the many hunters who didn't know what was going on, she couldn't help but laugh. She was completely intoxicated by the other party's tyranny at the meeting last night. If she could go to the morning hall with him, she would be willing to shorten her life by a year. Hearing Jessica's words, the hunters were stunned, and the little lolly Erika said, "Isn't it?" "Of course not. His skills are much better than Mark's." Jessica looked at Wood Crossing with stars on her face. "What?" Hearing Jessica's words, the hunters couldn't believe it. It would be fine if the other party was good at shooting, but they didn't believe that the other party's skills were better than Captain Mark. However, Mark nodded and said, "Wood Crossing is stronger than me." His words were already very conservative. The opponent was not only stronger than him, but the aura he exuded was enough to crush him. Until now, he still didn't understand how the opponent did it. Just like the woman standing on the shoulders of the leader-level devouring beast, she refreshed his understanding of the survivors on the ground. But Wood Crossing didn't say it, and he was embarrassed to ask. After getting Captain Mark's personal confirmation, the hunters immediately shouted, "Captain Mark, you won't lie to us, right?" How about a competition? Yes, yes, Captain Mark, you should compete with wood crossing. Little Lolita Erica saw that there was a good show to watch and said she felt that it was not enough to just compete in shooting skills, and she also wanted to see the opponent's skills. Nonsense. Mark heard this, and his face suddenly darkened. What a joke, asking him to fight with wood crossing. Isn't that like lighting a light in the toilet, looking for death? Captain Mark, Fixu has already competed with wood crossing. You guys should compete too. However, many wasteland hunters ignored him, and instead cited Fixu's example. Haha, since everyone is looking forward to it, Mark, you kids should give it a try. Chief Instructor Ellen laughed. Teacher. Upon hearing this, Mark's face became even uglier. This old and disrespectful guy, is he happy to see himself being beaten? Mark, just give it a try. What made him vomit blood was that Ranbing also joked with a smile. To be honest, after seeing the incident in the conference room yesterday, no one would not want to see wood crossing's combat ability. You know, the other party vowed yesterday that he would personally destroy Xing. After being said by his deputy, Mark was also a little moved. He also wanted to understand wood crossing, so he subconsciously looked at the other party and asked for his opinion. Okay, wood crossing said lightly. Then you have to show mercy later. Mark said hurriedly. Although he wanted to understand the other party's ability, he didn't want to be beaten up in front of many subordinates. Okay, I'll suppress my strength to the same level as yours. Wood crossing smiled and said. Keep your word. Mark's eyes lit up, and he was eager to try. He jumped onto the fighting ring for training, and took off his clothes. Wood crossing saw it, and jumped up slowly, also took off his shirt, revealing his streamlined figure. Gulp. Compared with Mark's explosive figure, wood crossing's figure didn't look so majestic, but it was very perfect, making some female hunters swallow their saliva subconsciously. This figure is amazing. Let me go to the morning hall with him. Looking at wood crossing's exposed figure, even Ranbing didn't have time to look at it more. Even Fixu, who was always aloof, was stunned. Fortunately, she was wearing a mask, so no one could see anything unusual. There was no way. Wood crossing's figure was really too good, so good that he didn't seem like a person, but more like a work of art. The angular abdominal muscles, although not as obvious as Mark's, are extremely even, and coupled with the perfect body proportions, the nose is full of strangeness. On the high platform far away from the training room, a figure saw wood crossing taking off his shirt, and the sexy red lips under the half mask were licked. My lord's figure is simply too perfect. Don't wait until you go to the morning hall. She will serve my lord tonight. Wood crossing knew that his body proportions were very good because he cultivated his soul power. In addition, the body shaping pills rewarded by the system, even Ling Yuan and the others didn't have time to swallow their saliva, let alone these women who live in the end times and make a living. Pretending to move for a while, it caused the female hunters in the audience to scream again and again, and Wood crossing immediately looked at Mark. Mark also stretched his body, his eyes condensed, and his fists clenched, making an offensive posture. I'm coming, Mark said, and then he punched Wood crossing with a straight punch. Facing the fist coming straight at him, Wood crossing slightly turned his body and easily dodged the opponent's attack. It is rude not to return the favor. While dodging the opponent's straight punch, he also stepped forward and punched the opponent's face. Looking at Wood crossing's attack, Mark was not surprised. He blocked with his left hand and attacked Wood crossing's chin with a right hook. Seeing Mark's intention, Wood crossing put down his left hand, slapped the opponent's right hook, and pushed his right knee forward to attack the opponent's chest. Mark, who missed the attack, saw Wood crossing push his knee, and with the help of the opponent's force, he turned his fist into a palm and blocked the opponent's attack. He also used the force to pull the distance between the two. Come on, Wood crossing. Come on. The two launched a series of mutual attacks, which immediately attracted the shouts of the audience. It's just that the style of painting is a bit strange. If it were in the past, everyone would cheer for Mark. Now that Wood crossing has shown off his physique, most of the wasteland hunters have joined the opponent's camp. Hearing the cheers from the audience, most of which came from the female hunters, a big pound appeared on Mark's forehead. He finally realized what it meant to let your three views follow your five senses. They are really something. The most annoying thing was that he also heard his deputy, Ranbing, betting on Wood Crossing to win in the high-end meal bet. This is intolerable. If the other party didn't hold back, he really couldn't compare, but the other party had suppressed his strength to the same level as himself, so he had a chance of winning. In an instant, Mark turned his anger into attack and accelerated the rhythm of the attack. Straight punches, hooks, and whip kicks were continuous, but they were all easily resolved by Wood Crossing. It's my turn, Captain Mark, you have to be careful. Wood Crossing, who blocked Mark's attacks one by one, used his strength to pull away and squinted his eyes. What he has shown now is enough. There is no need to continue playing, and he has let Mark go. No, let the sea go. No, he has let the whole world go, and there is no problem in winning the opponent. Hearing Wood Crossing's words, Mark's eyes condensed again, and his hands turned into a defensive posture. Obviously, he also understood that Wood Crossing was going to be serious, so he focused more. But the next second, as Wood Crossing threw a punch, his pupils shrank, and he exclaimed in his heart that it was so fast, and subconsciously raised his right arm to block Wood Crossing's straight punch. But the powerful force almost made him step back a few steps, and his arm also felt numb. No, Wood Crossing, stop, I admit defeat. Mark stood firm and saw Wood Crossing rushing to attack him again, and quickly admitted defeat. If he didn't admit defeat, he felt that his arm would be useless. He said that his strength was suppressed to the same level as his, but he launched his most powerful attack. If he continued to maintain it, he would definitely be injured. Chapter 184 Loyal Servant. When Wood Crossing heard Mark admit defeat, he stopped attacking, but the crowd in the ring was mixed with joy and sorrow. Just because they bet, they won a few days of high quality meals for nothing, but lost with a bitter face. When they thought about the next few days, they could only eat steamed buns to survive. They regretted it. They should have bet with Ranbing earlier. Ranbing and Captain Mark have been partners for such a long time, and she bet on Wood Crossing to win. Why did he just refuse to believe it? Mark looked at Wood Crossing with a bitter smile and said, the power of each of your blows has reached the limit I can bear, so I also asked him to show mercy. What else? Wood Crossing smiled and said, if it was really his full strength attack, even if he didn't open his martial spirit, his heavy physical strength could be turned into scrap metal by his punch. Okay. Mark sighed. He was not a person who cared about things. Picking up the clothes hanging on the guardrail, Wood Crossing put on his clothes again, turned back to look at the female wasteland hunters in the audience, and saw the gleam in their eyes, and was immediately ashamed. Wood Crossing, when are you going to the Dawn Hall? A certain bold woman asked Wood Crossing. Yes, Wood Crossing, if you go to the Dawn Hall, I will be the first to sign up. Another female hunter nodded. They were very excited about the man who could easily beat Captain Mark. If they could successfully breed offspring with him, how powerful they would be. Due to the gene theory of the lighthouse, these female hunters yearn to be combined with strong men. Even Fiksu, who has always been very arrogant, has the idea of going to the Dawn Hall with the other party. After all, whether it is appearance, figure, or strength, the other party is perfect. Since you are destined to go to the Dawn Hall, why not find someone you like? Ahem, I don't plan to go to the Dawn Hall for the time being. Looking at the women who want to swallow him, Wood Crossing sweated again. The Dawn Hall, when he watched the animal in cage, he was quite looking forward to it, but now, he is not a casual man. At least they have to be top beauties like Fiksu, Hegwangs, Jessica, and Jingnan. Forget about these female hunters who are not even extras. Then when do you want to go to the morning hall? Remember to tell us. Hearing Wood Crossing's answer, a group of female hunters showed disappointment. Yes, I want to have children with you. Some female hunters did not give up and said they wanted to have babies with the other party. Okay, Wood Crossing said with a stiff face. Fortunately, there was no live broadcast today, otherwise the women in his family would probably go crazy if they saw it. Seeing that the female hunters were getting more and more explicit, Mark's face twitched a few times, and he said with a stern face, are you guys free? Have you completed today's training tasks? If you haven't completed them, hurry up and complete them, otherwise the training volume will be doubled tomorrow. As Mark spoke, the group of hunters who were making a fuss were all stunned, and most of them left in an instant. The training volume for one day was already hard enough, and if it was doubled, it would be a death sentence for everyone. Seeing Mark's help, Wood Crossing was relieved and thanked him. Thank you. Haha, the people of the lighthouse are like this, maybe different from the survivors on the ground. Mark laughed. He also saw Wood Crossing's embarrassment. Yeah. Wood Crossing nodded. Not only different, but also outrageous. I'm afraid that only in the end of the world will such a rule appear. But then again, can you really destroy the fishy vortex? Mark's expression suddenly became serious. Do you think I'm kidding you? Wood Crossing rolled his eyes and jumped off the ring. Mark jumped down immediately and said, the fishy vortex channel is guarded by many king-level devouring beasts. The lighthouse once organized to destroy the exit of the channel, but before they got close, they were wiped out. Don't worry, you just take me there. When the time comes, you don't have to do it. Wood Crossing said confidently. Okay. Mark nodded heavily. He subconsciously thought that the other party was also like the woman standing on the devouring beast yesterday, with the ability to not be detected by the devouring beast. In this way, the chances of success in entering the Xing zone and destroying the lair of the devouring beast are very high. After chatting with Mark for a while, Wood Crossing left the training base. As soon as Wood Crossing left, Mark's teacher Ellen came up and asked, Mark, how credible do you think this person's words are? Teacher, I don't think he has any ill will towards the lighthouse. Mark naturally knew what his instructor meant. The teacher was worried that bringing the other party there was a conspiracy, and the purpose was to make them go to feed the devouring beast. However, Wood Crossing did not give him the feeling of such a person. Moreover, if he really fell into it, there was no need to make the light bearer the lord of the city. Maybe, as long as the Xing zone can be destroyed, humans will not have to live in disgrace everywhere. Ellen said slowly, and he was more willing to believe the other party. After all, it was his lifelong dream for humans to take back the ground and become the masters of this continent again, and he hoped to see it in his lifetime. Wood Crossing did not know that Mark and Ellen talked about it. After leaving the training base, he went to various places in the lighthouse again, and even went to the Dust People district. It must be said that the level of the lighthouse is very cruel. The gap between the upper people and the Dust People is very big. It's like two different worlds. When he came back from the Dust People area, a day had passed, and it was completely dark. When he opened the door, he saw the light bearer was already in the room, waiting for him to come back. My lord, you are back. The light bearer knelt on the ground respectfully, and there was a plate with rich food on the table. Fanti, you don't have to be like this. Looking at the light bearer kneeling on his knees, Wood Crossing had a headache. They are all human beings in the 24th century. Why are they still so superstitious? Although it is great to have such a loyal believer, he also hopes that the other party can be more rational. My lord, Fanti can't be disrespectful to you. But Wood Crossing's words did not work at all, and the light bearer still did not get up. Okay, whatever you want. Seeing that the light bearer was so persistent, Wood Crossing simply stopped persuading her and took her in as a maid. After sitting down at the table, Wood Crossing looked at the food on the plate. It was obviously different from yesterday's. It was obviously because he brought food from the Douluo world. After trying the taste, it tasted good. Although it was not as good as the cooking in the Douluo world, it had a different flavor. Seeing my master eating, the light bearer slowly moved his knees to Wood Crossing and pinched his thighs. My master, let Fanti serve you tonight. Wood Crossing, who was enjoying it twice, heard Fanti's words and didn't have time to take a breath. He then lowered his head and looked at the other party. Although the light bearer's face was half covered by the mask, he could feel the other party's expectant eyes. Faced with the maid's request, how could Wood Crossing refuse? The other party treated him as the master, so what's wrong with giving a little reward? Okay, Wood Crossing agreed. After he agreed, the atmosphere in the whole room became different, and he didn't want to eat. My master, is this food not to your taste? Seeing Wood Crossing stop eating, the light bearer couldn't help but wonder. No, I want to eat you more now. Standing up, Wood Crossing ordered her to kneel down in front of the bed, lifted her skirt, and began to attack her. Suddenly, a leisurely voice sounded from the room. Chapter 185, Blazing Flame Kite. 3 days passed in a flash, and soon it was time to go to the entrance of the fishy vortex. Wood Crossing was called to the meeting place by Fiksu, just because he found out that he lived next door to her during the past 3 days. When he first knew about it, he was still very surprised, but later he found out that it was deliberately arranged by the light bearer. In her words, "My master likes beautiful women, and Fiksu is similar to her, wearing a mask all year round, and this sense of mystery is more attractive, so she used her authority." So during these 3 days, Wood Crossing either met with the little maid of the light bearer, or promoted the friendship between the two sides with Fiksu. But he always felt that Fiksu was a little wrong with him, and he didn't know why he had this intuition. Of course, he didn't know that when he met with the light bearer in private, although the room was soundproof, he couldn't stand the little maid's loud singing voice, which made Fiksu next door want to knock on the door several times, intending to participate, no, to sue the other party not to affect others. But in the end, he didn't muster up the courage, so every meeting was a little unnatural. When I followed Fiksu to the gathering place, I saw Mark and others were already waiting. All the wasteland hunters were fully armed, and the little lolly Erika had already entered the gravity body. Since this time they were going to destroy the Xing. Even though Wood Crossing only asked them to lead the way, they did not neglect it at all, and even Morgan appeared here. As for the people, they also learned that the wasteland hunters were going to the Xing channel this time, to destroy the devouring beast's nest in one fell swoop and let humans become the masters of this continent again. So they all gathered in the distance to watch. After Morgan said some inspiring words, a group of wasteland hunters gathered and got into the armored vehicle. But when he saw that Wood Crossing had no intention of going in, Mark, who was about to get into the car, stopped and asked, "Wood Crossing, I don't need a car to get around." Wood Crossing said softly, "Don't need a car to get around." Wood Crossing's words made Mark stunned, and also made Morgan and a group of senior executives confused. 4 days ago, the other party said that he would take him to destroy the Xing. The route of the lighthouse has been close to the Xing channel. The ground below may appear at any time. In order to avoid being attacked, they did not lower the lift platform of the lighthouse, but used the armored vehicle propulsion equipment to land on the ground from the sky. How can the other party go down if they don't get into the armored vehicle? "Don't worry, I will keep up with you," Wood Crossing said with a smile. Okay. Although he didn't know what Wood Crossing could do, Mark chose to believe Wood Crossing. Just when Fiksu was about to follow Mark to get into the armored vehicle, Wood Crossing's voice sounded again. "Fiksu, do you want to experience the feeling of flying?" Fiksu paused, and a hint of doubt appeared on her pretty face under the mask. "I'll take you down," Wood Crossing said with a smile. In the past 3 days, the two of them were separated by a room, and they often saw each other on the balcony when they were resting. Therefore, both sides would chat across the balcony and were very familiar. The only regret is that, even when they were relaxing, the other party kept wearing a mask, which made Wood Crossing think that he would unmask the other party sooner or later. Fiksu did not answer, but she had already made her attitude clear by stepping out from the armored vehicle. "Let's go." The door of the armored vehicle closed, and Mark's order came from Wood Crossing's headset, which immediately caused the excited shouts of the wasteland hunters. Then 3 fully armed armored vehicles were seen rushing out of the platform with powerful motors roaring, rushing directly to the high sky in front of them, and making a free fall. Seeing the 3 armored vehicles rushing out, the crowd of onlookers all approached the guardrail and looked down, all with envy in their eyes. However, only a few people, a group of senior executives, looked at Wood Crossing. Fiksu also looked at Wood Crossing, as if asking what to do next. Wood Crossing, who walked slowly to the edge of the platform, noticed the strangeness of Fiksu beside him, and his mouth curled up slightly. Looking at the expression on the other party's face, Fiksu's body trembled, and then the thought that the other party was not going to take her to jump from here came into her mind. What a joke, this is 1,000 meters high. If you jump down without any equipment, you will definitely be dead. Just when Fiksu thought Wood Crossing was going to take him down, Morgan and other high-level people also had this absurd idea. Only the light bearer looked at my lord with a sincere face. My lord, he is finally going to show his strength. Soul power surged, and in an instant, a black halo first emerged from Wucrossing's feet, followed by black, red, gold, gold. 7 pieces of lighthouse high level dumbfounded, and also made Fiksu dumbfounded. That's right, after the diary copy was upgraded, he upgraded his strength to Soul Saint through them all. This is also the main reason why he is confident that he can destroy Xing. If there is only a Soul King, it may not be a match for the king level devouring extreme beast in the linkage world. But the Soul Saint is different, and his strength has already made a qualitative leap. What's going on? Why does he have halos of different colors? Such a magical scene made the original crowd noisy. They had never seen or heard of such a supernatural phenomenon. Martial soul true body, fiery spirit kite. However, their shock was far from over. As Wucrossing shouted, a giant bird formed by flames appeared out of thin air in the sky. Hiss. Oh my god. What is going on? When the huge fiery spirit kite appeared in front of the lighthouse, countless people took a breath of cold air and exclaimed in disbelief. The lighthouse executives, except for the light bearer, also had huge waves in their hearts, and their eyes turned to Wucrossing with particular shock. It felt like the other party did not show his true strength in the conference room a few days ago. But, how did the other party do it? How did he summon such a flaming bird? It simply overturned their understanding of science. Seeing the reactions of the crowd, Wucrossing wanted to achieve this effect. He then stepped forward and stepped on the back of the fiery spirit kite. Then he turned around and said to Fiksu, who had not yet recovered, "Come up." Oh, okay. Fiksu was stunned for a moment before acting. Then she jumped lightly and jumped onto the back of the fiery spirit kite. It was no wonder that she behaved like this. It was the ability shown by Wucrossing that made her unbelievable. Is the other party a god? A bird that can summon flames? And the colorful halo is so conspicuous that she has to doubt whether the other party is really a god. Otherwise, how could such an incredible thing happen? Let alone her, Morgan, Ellen, and Victor all began to doubt themselves. Is the other party really a god? Chapter 186 Farewell to my lord. At this moment, whether it was the upper class or the common people, whether it was the believers or the high-level officials of the lighthouse, they all looked at him as if he were a god. Looking at the reactions of the crowd, the light bearer took a step forward, immediately knelt on the ground, folded his hands on his chest, and made a sincere prayer, and a loud voice rang out. Farewell to my lord, and he will return triumphantly. Farewell to my lord, and he will return triumphantly. As the light bearer's voice rang out, a group of guards and priests who had been bribed by her also knelt on the ground and shouted in the same way. The common people who heard the voice seemed to be infected, and they knelt on the ground in imitation. In an instant, the whole lighthouse was filled with the words of farewell to my lord, and he will return triumphantly. The scene in front of them was so shocking. When had they ever seen such a magical scene? How could they explain it if it wasn't a god? The reason why Wucrossing released his martial soul in front of the entire lighthouse was not just to show off, but to cooperate with his little maid, so that she could better manage the lighthouse in the future. Obviously, the effect was very good. Seeing all the dust people following the light bearer and shouting my lord, the senior leaders of the lighthouse looked at each other and tacitly accepted Wucrossing's identity. Compared with the illusory light and shadow society, Wucrossing's ability now demonstrated is undoubtedly more convincing, and it can also make the people more convinced and take it as a spiritual sustenance. Let's go. Wucrossing listened to the shouting from the lighthouse. He just took a quick look and controlled the fiery spirit kite to dive down. The wings that covered the sky and the sun flapped, bringing up a whirlwind, and quickly fell down, soon surpassing the hunters who had gone ahead. In the 3 armored vehicles that were in rapid freefall, they only felt a shadow appear on the front window, and then saw a huge flaming bird passing in front of them, and they were all dumbfounded. Oh my god. What is that? Fiksu and Wuxing are on the back of that bird. The driver's exclamation made Mark and others sitting in the back look out the window subconsciously. They didn't know until they saw it. They were shocked and opened their mouths wide with disbelief. What did they see? They actually saw a giant bird that was bigger than 3 armored vehicles. If it was just a giant bird, it would be fine, but the problem was that this giant bird was formed by flames, and more importantly, there were two figures of Xing and Fixu standing on its back. The violent little lolly Erica, who was originally in the gravity body, excitedly waving her little fists, enjoying the excitement of the armored vehicle's high altitude freefall, was stunned after seeing this scene. In an instant, she felt that her gravity body was not fragrant at all. Damn it, Xing, why is it that only Sister Fixu enjoys such treatment? Am I so bad? After a moment, the little lolly Erica said aggrievedly in the headset. Listening to Erica's inexplicable grievance, the hunters on the side came back to their senses from the shock and laughed. What do you look like? Don't you know it yourself? Is your figure as good as Fixu's? Is the panda as big as Fixu? Are your legs as long as Fixu's? The only advantage is that you have a lolly face. However, thinking of this, they are all envious without exception. After all, such a supernatural phenomenon, who would not yearn for a flamingo as a mount? Xing, who was swooping down, listened to the grievance of the little lolly Erica from the headset, and he also looked amused. Erica, you are very cute, but I saw you just entered the gravity body, so I didn't call you. Erica, who heard this, was dumbfounded again in an instant, and it turned out that the reason why she didn't get this treatment was because of her own reasons. No, I want compensation. Erica then said, Xing, after this mission is over, I want to ride that big bird too. Okay. Xing smiled and replied. For a girl with a baby face and big breasts like her, he would arrange for her to ride on another big bird, not to mention the fiery spirit kite. Fixu, who was standing by, blushed a little when she heard the conversation between Erica and Xing. She glanced at the person beside her from under the mask. Suddenly, her heartbeat quickened, and she felt an inexplicable impulse. Did he like her too? Otherwise, why would he take her flying alone? Xing seemed to have noticed Fixu's gaze, so he turned around and looked at her and teased. Are you moved? No, no. Fixu blushed and said proudly. Listening to the flirting between the two people in the headset, the hunters laughed and said, haha, our Fixu is actually shy. They were all rough people, without too many ideas. As long as they could protect the people around them, they would even sacrifice their lives for it. Although Xing was a survivor from the ground, he was very much in everyone's mood after the contact over the past few days, so much so that some jokes were made. Hearing those rough laughs, Fixu's face turned even redder. If it weren't for the mask covering her, she would probably want to find a hole to crawl into. Stop it, get to the ground quickly, and prepare to land. At this moment, Mark's voice came. Xing, who was standing on the fiery spirit kite, withdrew the idea of teasing the spirit kite. Looking at the empty ground below filled with densely packed snake dogs, a kind of extreme beast, he also said, I will open up the ground for you first. As he said that, the fiery spirit kite flapped its huge wings, speeding up its dive. Just as it approached the ground, it spewed flames from its mouth. In an instant, all the snake dogs on the ground were turned into ashes by the flames, and a large open area appeared. Hiss. Seeing countless snake dogs on the ground, turned into ashes by the flames, sprayed by the giant bird, everyone in the armored vehicle took a breath of cold air again. They didn't expect that this giant flaming bird could also spray flames and even kill the extreme beasts in seconds. Oh my god, this is too exaggerated. Mo Cheng thought that the firebird was just a mount and never expected that it could release terrifying flames. Wow, Xing, your big bird is too powerful, Erica exclaimed. Although Mark didn't say it, he was also extremely shocked in his heart, and he was more confident that Xing could destroy the horrible vortex. Under the flames of Xing's fiery spirit kite, the armored vehicles also came to a height of 100 meters. With the start of the booster, flames also spewed out from the bottom of the vehicle. The vehicle, which was originally falling rapidly, soon balanced and its speed was much slower, until the three armored vehicles all landed safely. Oh wow. Landing successful, go to the horrible vortex, and kill those extreme beasts. Suddenly, a group of wasteland hunters shouted excitedly again. They had long been fed up with such a doomsday world. If there was no other way, they would have entered the horrible vortex channel long ago. Now Wu Crossing has appeared and has shown supernatural abilities. They have been looking forward to this day for a long time. Chapter 187 Bayuki Team. 3 armored vehicles were moving forward at an extremely fast speed, and a huge flaming bird was escorting them in the sky above. Facing the devouring beasts that were rushing from all directions, the flaming wings of the fiery spirit kite could turn all the snakes and dogs close to the convoy into ashes. Wu Crossing, your bird is too exaggerated. Seeing that countless devouring beasts could not get within 10 meters of the convoy, Mark, who was originally ready to defend at any time, could not help but be shocked. Judging from the reminder and ability shown by the bird under the opponent's feet, it is probably the strength of a king-level devouring beast. And the most important point is that this bird has the ability to fly, but the devouring beasts cultivated by Xing rarely have the ability to fly. Even if they have, they are only some of the most low-level existences, not to mention the king-level devouring beasts. This is why the lighthouse can stand in the sky of this continent and become a refuge. It's okay. Wu Crossing didn't feel much. Listening to Wu Crossing's answer, Mark's forehead twitched. Is this bad just okay in the eyes of the other party? Wu Crossing. Erica's voice came hurriedly. What's wrong, Erica? Wu Crossing asked subconsciously. Do you want me to go to the morning hall with you, and you can give me a small flying bird? Erica said excitedly. After hearing Wu Crossing say that this big bird was just okay, she suddenly had an idea. If she had such a cool big bird, even if it was not that big, she would want to ride it and fly in the lighthouse every day. Listening to Erica's fierce words, Wu Crossing's mouth moved. Although he was a little moved, he still said helplessly, ahem, Erica, I only have such a big bird. Fiksu, who was standing next to Wu Crossing, heard Erica's bold declaration of love and subconsciously pressed her body close to the other party. She didn't know why this happened, for fear that the other party would agree. Fortunately, the other party only had such a firebird and did not agree to Erica. Wu Crossing naturally noticed Fiksu's little move, smiled at her, then turned off the communication between the two and whispered in her ear, if you let me see your true face, I will give you one. Fiksu was stunned at first, then her face turned red and even her ears were red. Really? After a while, Fiksu couldn't help but speak. Haha, fake. I only have one, but it can let you practice such summoning. But how long it takes depends on your talent. Seeing Fiksu's heartbeat, Wu Crossing laughed. What he said was not false. He had 3 diary invitation cards in his hand. As long as he invited the other party into the diary, he could learn the cultivation system from different worlds. This was learned through the host mall, because his mall was slightly different from that of the copy holder. For the same product, his mall as a host and his woman's mall were a little different. Take the 100,000 year spirit ring as an example. His only needs 800 points, but Suruaxi, Dugu Yan and others need 1000 points. I don't know why the system has some privileges anyway. Summoning spell. When Fiksu heard this word, she thought of what Wu Crossing had done just now, and a light flashed in front of her eyes again, and she said, okay, I promise you. Seeing Fiksu so decisive and about to touch the mask on his face, Wu Crossing was also stunned, and then said with shame, wait until the mission is over, and we go back to sea. Fiksu, who was about to move, stopped immediately. She wears a mask all year round, and no one knows her face. It's not that there are any flaws on her face, but she looks very stunning. It is precisely because of this that she has been wearing it to avoid unnecessary harassment. Of course, no one knows this except her. The speed of the convoy is very fast. In the blink of an eye, a huge rift appeared in front of them. When Wu Crossing followed the convoy into the rift, he raised his eyebrows and looked at the top of the right side of the valley. There were 2 cars parked above, and there were several figures standing beside the car, and the leader was Bayuki. The reason why Bayuki appeared here was because the equipment detected that the route of the lighthouse was a little wrong, as if it was heading towards the entrance of the fishy vortex. She immediately led her team to rush here, wanting to determine what the people at the lighthouse were going to do. She had been studying the spiral channel and wanted to destroy it all the time, but she had never succeeded. Because even if she could avoid the tracking of the devouring beast, the spiral channel would release an unknown signal that prevented her from entering. and this time, seeing such a huge movement at the lighthouse, she naturally could not remain indifferent. But when she looked at the convoy of the lighthouse, as it approached the valley, she was shocked. 3 fully armored vehicles appeared below. Of course, this was not the point. The point was that there was a huge flaming bird on the roof of the car, and 2 figures stood on it. It was as if the flaming giant bird under his feet was the opponent's mount. Boss, what is that? Shandao in the team looked at the flaming giant bird, widened his eyes, and said in disbelief, "Boss, this bird is a little too big." Xiaodao also stared at her eyes and asked stupidly. The remaining team members, without exception, were refreshed by the visual impact brought by the fiery spirit kite as the convoy approached. Listening to his team members' words, Bayuki, who had lived for hundreds of years and had long been calm, was also shocked at this moment. Who on the flame bird was he, and how could he control such a big bird? Could it be a devouring beast, a new type of devouring beast bred by Xing? But it shouldn't be. If it was a devouring beast, how could it be willing to be a human's mount? Bayuki only looked at it for a while, and he had already analyzed that the flame bird was not like the devouring beast that he had stood on when he was the leader, making it invisible to the devouring beast, but was actually controlling it. Following the command of the man on the bird's back, the huge flame bird would release flames to clean up the devouring beasts along the way. Let's follow it. Or thought flashed through his mind, and Bayuki quickly retracted his gaze and then called the team members to get in the car. Upon hearing this, the team members quickly got into the car and quickly followed down the valley. At this time, Fiksu, who was standing on the fiery spirit kite, also noticed the members of the Bayuki team in the valley. She was also stunned when she saw the vehicle rushing down with a cloud of dust. "Is that your man?" Fiksu asked in confusion. She subconsciously thought that it was the other party's companion who destroyed Xing this time. "No." Wukrosing shook his head and replied, "That's the survivor on the ground." Chapter 188 Unscientific. Captain, 2 vehicles appeared at the 5 o'clock direction. At the same time, the radar on the armored vehicle also discovered the Bayuki team approaching quickly. Mark looked at the vehicle that suddenly appeared. His expression changed slightly, and then asked, "Wukrosing, what should we do now?" This time, although he is the captain of the Wasteland Hunters, they are only responsible for leading the way and setting up a defensive position at the entrance of the fishy vortex channel. The rest is left to Wukrosing to handle, so when facing the mysterious vehicle that suddenly appeared, he should ask the other party for instructions first. "It's okay, you continue to lead the way. They are survivors on the ground and will not be a problem." Wukrosing glanced at the rapidly approaching vehicle and said slowly. He was not too surprised that the Bayuki team appeared here. When watching the anime, he knew that Bayuki had a deep study of the fishy vortex channel. He appeared here perhaps because he discovered the movement of the lighthouse and came to find out. "Okay." Mark heard Wukrosing's instructions and responded, commanding the convoy to continue to move towards the rift valley ahead without slowing down. The vehicles of Bayuki's team also quickly came behind the convoy, neatly following behind the armored vehicles. When their convoy came to the bottom of the fiery spirit kite, the team members looked up at the huge flaming bird in the sky and realized how huge it was and how small the vehicles were. Just the wings spread out were longer than the convoy. The huge claws gave people a suffocating feeling. "Xiaodao, connect to the communication of the lighthouse convoy." Bayuki retracted his shocked gaze and ordered Xiaodao. Xiaodao nodded immediately after hearing this, and then turned on the device in his hand, and his fingers quickly typed on it. "Boss, it's okay." After a while of operation, Xiaodao replied. Bayuki pressed the communication in his ear and took the lead in identifying himself. "We are survivors on the ground. Are you from the lighthouse?" When Bayuki started to speak, both the Wasteland Hunter team and Wukrosing's headset received the other party's inquiry at the first time. "Yes." Mark paused for a moment and replied in the headset. From the moment they met Wukrosing, the hunters were no longer surprised that there were still survivors on the ground. Bayuki, who was confirmed, asked again, "Looking at your route, are you going to the Xing channel?" "Yes." Mark nodded and then said, "How come you are here?" "We have been studying the way to enter the Xing channel, and today we just happened to find your convoy." Bayuki replied. That's perfect. We have the same goal and hope to work together next. Knowing that the survivors on the ground have studied the Xing channel, Mark couldn't help but invite them. For them, they only know the specific location of the Xing channel, but they don't know it. If there is information shared by these survivors on the ground, it may make the task easier. Cooperation? Bayuki was stunned when he heard this. Yes, our lighthouse is going to cooperate with Wu Crossing to destroy Xing this time. Mark responded. Cooperate with Wu Crossing? Bayuki was startled again. Boss Bay, hello. At this time, Wu Crossing's voice also sounded in the communication. Who are you? Bayuki was very surprised to hear that someone knew him. He is Wu Crossing, the main force of this mission to destroy the Xing, and the owner of the giant bird in the sky. Before Wu Crossing could answer, Mark's voice came again. Hearing this, Bayuki subconsciously looked up at the sky, and after a moment, he said, "Can you destroy Xing?" "Of course." Wu Crossing replied with a smile. If the hunter said this, Bayuki might not believe it, but since the other party can control such a behemoth, maybe it can really succeed. Okay, if there is any help, just ask. Hearing Wu Crossing's confident words, Bayuki took the initiative to agree to cooperate. After a brief exchange, the two sides also confirmed a cooperative relationship, and Xiaodao finally couldn't help but be curious. Wu Crossing, is the firebird you control a devouring beast? No, this is one of my abilities, classmate Xiaodao. Wu Crossing said with a smile. You know my name? Xiaodao heard this, and widened her eyes. In the exchange between the two sides just now, she didn't say her name. Not only do I know you, I also know all the members of your team. Of course, you just don't know me. Wu Crossing's mysterious words followed. You know me too? Broken Star was stunned, and all the team members were also confused. It would be fine if they knew their boss. After all, the boss had been to the lighthouse before, but the other team members had never been there. Yes, Miss Broken Star. Wu Crossing laughed again. Broken Star was surprised again when she heard this and was about to ask something, but Mark's voice interrupted her. Wu Crossing, there is a beast tied ahead. Wu Crossing stopped chatting with the members of Bayuki's team and looked forward. He saw that in front of the narrow rift passage, there was a tremor of the ground and mountains, bringing up rolling dust. It was surprisingly that countless extreme beasts were rushing towards the convoy. Don't worry, just move forward and leave the rest to me. Wu Crossing replied, and then controlled the fiery spirit kite to overtake the convoy. At the moment of overtaking the convoy, the fiery spirit kite flapped its wings, and a fire tornado was created below it, sweeping towards the beast tied ahead. Oh my god. Looking at the fire tornado created by the giant flame bird, the driver of the wasteland hunter in the front almost braked suddenly, causing the vehicle behind to rear end. At the same time, the screens of the convoy also received the front scene, and they all took a breath of cold air when they saw the fire tornado that rushed straight into the sky. The giant flame bird in front of them was too terrifying. At first, I thought it could only spit fire, but I didn't expect it to be able to create a fire tornado now. The fire tornado rushed towards the beast tied at a very fast speed. Wherever it passed, the beasts were either thrown out by the hurricane and crashed into the steep walls on both sides, or burned to ashes by the flames. Seeing the exaggerated beast tide being solved by Wu Crossing's giant flame bird with a crushing force, everyone's hearts were once again filled with surging waves. Wu Crossing, are you a god? After a long while, everyone came back to their senses and began to doubt. Being able to control a huge firebird is incredible enough, and now there is such a terrifying ability. It is unscientific, not scientific at all. Even Bayuki, who has genetic enhancement, saw this scene, and the shock in his heart was also unparalleled. Chapter 189, Spiral Channel. The wind swept away the clouds, and the withered trees and the clever things were destroyed. Fiksu, who was standing next to Wu Crossing, was even more deeply touched. Apart from gods, how could humans achieve this level? You can think of me as a god. Wu Crossing grinned. Anyway, with his current strength, it is no exaggeration to call him a god in this world of spirit cage. You really are. The little lolly Erica was dumbfounded. Haha, almost. Wu Crossing smiled. Then if I have a child with you, will it be as powerful as before? Erica said excitedly. Obviously, after seeing that she could not get the little flying bird, the little lolly began to think about Wu Crossing himself. Such a powerful man, even if he is not a god, his genes are absolutely against the sky, and as a senior citizen living in the lighthouse, genes are particularly valued. At this moment, she has no objection to the Dawn Hall. Of course, the premise is that the other party, not only the little lolly Erica, but also the other female hunters in the car have such thoughts. Even Ranbing, who has always liked Mark, has this idea. If he could go to the Dawn Hall with the other party, it would not be unacceptable. After all, with the other party's genes, the child born to him would not be bad. And seeing that his child could have the power of a god like his father, why would he care about these extreme beasts? Why would he worry about not being able to become the master of this continent again? Wu Crossing didn't know what the female hunters were thinking at this time. Hearing Erica's amazing words, he almost stumbled and fell off the back of the fiery spirit kite. Why do these women want to go to the Dawn Hall with him to make children? Is he so fragrant? He didn't know that the reason why these female hunters were like this was that they had received a completely different education from the other party since childhood. They didn't have the concept of free love, but they attached great importance to breeding offspring. This led to this idea subconsciously emerging when they saw Wu Crossing, who was like a god. In the past, they hoped to enter the Dawn Hall with their captain, because Mark was strong enough, the strongest man in the lighthouse, and his genes were absolutely excellent. But now seeing the more exaggerated Wu Crossing, how could they not be moved? Not shaken? If Wu Crossing opens his mouth, I'm afraid there won't be a woman in the lighthouse who won't line up to go to the morning hall with him. Even women like Jingnan and Ranbing are no exception. This is a concept formed by the long-term education of the lighthouse, and it can't be explained clearly in a few words. Although Fiksu is very aloof, she is also influenced by the lighthouse. If Wu Crossing asks her to go to the morning hall with her, she won't refuse. This is not to say that they don't love themselves and can do that kind of thing with a man casually. It's completely a difference in concepts that leads to a ridiculous idea in Wu Crossing's eyes. I don't know, you can try it. Wu Crossing, who calmed down, joked with the little lolly. Although he prefers older sisters and mature women to little lolly, he can accept baby-faced big breasts. Really? Then we'll go to the morning hall after this mission. Wu Crossing's words were originally just a joke, but it made the little lolly Erica light up. Ahem, just kidding. Wu Crossing was embarrassed because not only Erica's voice came from his headset, but even some female wasteland hunters joined in. TSK, I knew you would say that. You just want to go to the morning hall with Lord Lightbearer and Sister Fiksu. Erica curled her lips. Fiksu blushed when she heard Erica's teasing. She felt a little panic in her heart and said, Erica, talk less. Okay, Sister Fiksu, I'll go with Wu Crossing after you go to the morning hall. Erica replied with a smile. Fiksu. Okay, all of you talk less. We are about to arrive at the smelly passage. Everyone, get ready. At this time, Mark's voice came, interrupting the women's imagination. But he didn't feel surprised. After all, even the male people received the same education. If Wu Crossing could leave them with offspring, it would definitely be a good thing for the lighthouse. As the convoy went deeper into the Rift Valley, they soon saw the end in front of them. This was a huge basin. In the center, strange petals suddenly appeared. The center of the petals is a glowing underground entrance, and around it are devouring beasts. These devouring beasts are no longer the lowest snakes and dogs, or earth roars. Some are huge, like a mountain, and some are extremely strange, with light spots all over their bodies. Without exception, they are all devouring beasts above the leader level. Let's get started. With Wu Crossing's order, the hood of the armored vehicle was opened, and heavy guns emerged. The wasteland hunters also drilled out from above, with their hands on them, ready to suppress fire at any time. The backup door was also opened at the same time, and the wasteland hunters' driving gravity bodies also stood out from it. The members of Bayuka's team were no exception. Without the boss saying anything, Shattered Star had already stood up from the back seat, and the special bow and arrow in his hand had been deployed. Dashin grabbed the mechanical boxing gloves in his hand and punched twice, ready to join the battle at the first time. Bayuki also stood up, looking at the fishy vortex passage in front of him, flashing a few times. Roar. Seeing the vehicles coming this way, the devouring beasts roared one after another, and then rushed over quickly. Fire. Seeing the devouring beasts coming back, Mark made a prompt decision. As soon as these words came out, the fully armed people immediately raised their weapons, and began to shoot wildly. Fixu also took out the heavy sniper rifle hanging on his back, carried it on his shoulder, aimed at the eyes of a huge devouring beast, and fired a shot. In an instant, countless bullets sounded, and shells were fired. However, these attacks can still cause huge damage to low-level devouring beasts, but they are not very objective for the leader-level devouring beasts. They can only symbolically stop the pace of advancement. 6th soul skill, Meteor Shower. At this time, Wood Crossing also took action. The golden soul ring under his feet bloomed, and huge meteorites appeared out of thin air in the sky, covering the sky and the earth. Seeing this situation, whether it was the wasteland hunters or Bayuki and others, their eyes were almost bulging out. They never thought that in addition to the giant flaming bird, Wood Crossing himself could also release this abnormal ability. Boom. 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 Meteorites turned into meteors, and fell from the sky, smashing towards the huge group of devouring beasts, like dense missiles landing, with huge noises and raging flames. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 190, 10,000 Swords Return. This is a missile baptism. The hunters looked at the scene in front of them, and didn't know how to describe their feelings at this moment. Bayuki and her team members also looked at the scene in shock. What kind of monster is this? Not only can it summon such a big flaming bird, but it can also release such a terrifying attack method. Science can no longer explain it clearly. Although the survivors on the ground found another shortcut to cultivate spiritual force, it was limited to enhancing their physical fitness and making everyone stronger. But what is in front of them? What is the thing? To summon a meteorite with flames. Who can tell them? Now even if Wood Crossing said that he was a human, no one would believe it. The meteorites in the sky were like meteors, hitting the ground, the sky-high flames, and the huge explosions, causing countless groups of extreme beasts to be killed and injured in an instant. Even the leader-level extreme beasts wailed in the face of this bombing. Of course, this is not the most important point. What really surprised them was that they found that Wood Crossing's attack was not a simple physical output. These devouring beasts seemed to be unable to recover. Bayuki immediately discovered the key. Since the laws of this world are completely different from those of the Douluo world, soul power is not something from this world that can affect the repair of the devouring beasts themselves. This situation was discovered as early as when Wood Crossing just crossed over. He had no immunity to the erosion of soul power. It's like a creature in one environment coming to another completely different environment, and its own immune system does not work at all. This is why even humans with powerful thermal weapons will retreat step by step until they become the end of the world. The most fundamental reason is that human thermal weapons, even if they can cause great damage to the devouring beasts, can be easily resurrected by absorbing the source of life. In this case, even if there are big killers like nuclear weapons that can instantly kill the titled Douluo, what's the point of not being able to kill? Wood Crossing is different. The attacks he released all carry soul power, like a virus. Not to mention that the devouring beasts repair themselves. It's good enough if they don't spread the corrosion further in their bodies. Too awesome. Let's work harder. The wasteland hunters also discovered this and were eager to fight. At first, they were worried that their firepower was not enough to suppress these extreme beasts. After all, in their eyes, as long as the extreme beasts had life essence, they would be immortal. But now, seeing the corpses everywhere, the extreme beasts wailing, but unable to repair their own injuries, all of them were shining. Such news was so exciting for them. The members of the Bayuki team were no exception. They had been studying weapons that could completely eliminate the extreme beasts. Although they had achieved some results, it was not easy to survive in the end times, so how could they produce powerful weapons in large quantities? If there were weapons against the extreme beasts at the beginning, with the cohesion of mankind, this scene would not have happened. Instead, it was the mana ecology, like a new virus, that continued to sweep human society, causing a devastating blow. Fixu, you go down for the time being, Wu Crossing said softly. Fixu took back the heavy sniper rifle in his hand, glanced at Wu Crossing, and immediately understood. When the fiery spirit kite approached the ground, he jumped onto the armored vehicle. At the same time, the flying fiery spirit kite quickly turned into nothingness. As the fiery spirit kite disappeared, the wasteland hunters and Bayuki and others were all stunned, wondering how the other party took back their powerful mounts. Then, an amazing scene appeared again. The fiery spirit kite that Wu Crossing was stepping on disappeared, and instead, a huge sword appeared on Wu Crossing's back, standing in the air with endless murderous aura. Fuck. Oh my god. A god. No, I must go to the morning hall with Wu Crossing. Seeing Wu Crossing floating in the air, like a god, with a huge sword appearing on his back, everyone was stunned, and even forgot to press the trigger. This is definitely a god. It is definitely an immortal described in the books of the old world. 6th soul skill, 10,000 swords return to the origin. A soft chant sounded, although it was not loud, it seemed to be able to penetrate the sky, followed by countless sword shadows, appearing out of thin air. It was even more exaggerated than the meteor shower just now, and the number was far more than before, covering the entire basin. Of course, it doesn't mean that meteor shower is worse than Wanji and Gizem. The two attacks are different. In terms of damage range, meteor shower is definitely better, but in terms of penetration, Wanji and Gizem is better. He wanted to take advantage of the heavy damage of meteor shower to eliminate the group of devouring beasts guarding the smelly passage in one fell swoop. The dense flying swords that covered the sky and the sun gathered together, and the sky changed color, as if a punishment from heaven was coming. The murderous aura even made it difficult for everyone to breathe, making the devouring beasts restless, and showing a look of fear. This is too exaggerated. Looking at the flying swords in the sky, Dashan didn't know how many times his eyes popped out, and Bayuki didn't know how many huge waves he had in his heart, and the wasteland hunters were completely numb. Countless flying swords, with Wu Crossing's light wave of his fingers, poured down in an instant, and the flying swords were cold and fast, so that the devouring beasts had no time to react or dodge, and penetrated into their bodies. After the baptism of the meteor shower, the group of devouring beasts was already in great pain. Now, under the penetration of the 10,000 swords returning to the origin, even the leader level devouring beasts could not stand up. Their huge bodies fell to the ground with a thump, completely losing their ability to move. Unable to repair themselves through the life source, they would face death and be completely destroyed. After doing all this, Wu Crossing looked at the group of devouring beasts that had been dealt with by him, and then slowly fell from the sky. When Wu Crossing slowly stepped on the ground, the members of the Bayuki team and the wasteland hunters led by Mark all grunted and swallowed their saliva unconsciously. Why are you looking at me like that? Seeing the eyes looking at him one by one, Wu Crossing smiled slightly. Mark was the first to come back to his senses when he heard this. He looked at the devouring beast that had lost its ability again, swallowed his throat again, and said with a wry smile, "We can't describe you." Indeed, now he didn't know how to describe the other party. At first, he thought that the other party was just strong, and wondered if his body had been modified. Later, he found that the other party could summon the fiery spirit kite, which was not something that science could explain. Now, he has released two extremely exaggerated supernatural means in succession, which once again refreshed their three views. Chapter 191 Enter. You release these hands. Let's call them skills for now. It should take some energy, right? Bayuki asked after a moment. Although she looks like a girl, she is already over 100 years old. She has experienced two different worlds and witnessed the darkest moments of mankind. The reason why she looks so young now is because her body has been transformed and has anti-aging drugs in her body. When she was still a child, the mana ecosystem had not yet appeared, and the geological disaster had not yet occurred. At that time, human society was still peaceful. She had read the myths circulating in the old world at that time, so she asked this question. Yeah. Woodcrossing nodded. Hearing Woodcrossing's answer, Mark next to him was stunned, and then immediately said, Woodcrossing, then you should take a rest, we just need to clean up the mess here. He subconsciously thought that the other party had released such supernatural means twice in a row, and the consumption should be very large. Later, Woodcrossing had to enter the fishy vortex channel to destroy the lair of the devouring beast, so he had to restore his condition to the best. As for the mess on the ground, they can just clean it up, but they can't let the other party do it again while they watch the show. After all, this is the hope of mankind. Whether they can become the masters of the continent again depends on each other. Yes, Woodcrossing, you should recover your strength as soon as possible. The hunters also nodded hurriedly. At this moment, everyone is confident that Woodcrossing can destroy Xing. Fixu also said, you go to the car to rest and leave the next defense to us. No problem. Looking at everyone who is concerned about their soul power consumption, Woodcrossing's mouth cracked and smiled. These consumptions are a drop in the bucket for me. Mark and his team. Bayuki and his team. Is this human language? Released such a terrifying ability twice, but it's just a drop in the bucket? Is your body equipped with a nuclear reactor? Has your body been modified? Bayuki's eyes flickered and continued to ask. No. Woodcrossing shook his head and continued, my body is different from yours. What I just released is called a soul skill. Just think of it as similar to the force you practice. Soul skill? Similar to the force you practice? The Wasteland Hunter team was still confused when they heard this, but Bayuki and her members were extremely shocked. Bayuki looked as if it was just as she expected, similar to some novels and books she had read on the internet when she was young. The members of her team were shocked that the other party could actually practice such a terrible skill. Are you a cultivator? Bayuki asked tentatively. No. Woodcrossing was stunned. He didn't expect to hear such a word from Bayuki's mouth, and his face became strange. But then he thought that the other party's age seemed to have lived in the old world, so he could understand it. Bayuki was a little surprised when she heard Woodcrossing's answer. She didn't expect that the other party was not a cultivator in the mythology of the old world. After careful consideration, she couldn't help but understand that if there really was such a thing in the old world, it would probably not allow the devouring beast to wreak havoc. Can we learn the ability you have cultivated? Bayuki asked again after understanding. At the same time, Mark and other hunters also reacted with glowing eyes. Fixu's eyes under the mask stared at Woodcrossing. The other party had said before that he could also cultivate it. Could it be related to this matter? Don't hold out hope. This is not something you can learn. Woodcrossing looked at the people who were expecting, smiled and shook his head. He only had 3 diary invitation cards in total, and he could only invite women, so he naturally couldn't say it. Hearing Woodcrossing's answer, Mark and others were immediately disappointed. If they could cultivate the so-called soul skills like the other party, they would be like the other party, and they would be afraid of the extreme beasts and those things. They would all be destroyed by waving their hands and let them enter the dining table and become protected animals. Although Bayuki's face did not show any changes, he was inevitably a little disappointed when he heard this answer. If they could learn the other party's abilities, they would not have to hide and live. As for Fixu, she was also very disappointed. She didn't expect that only the other party could. No. At this moment, she suddenly realized something. The light bearer Fandi seemed to have some abilities similar to the other parties. As for the light bearer Fandi, she could say with certainty that the other party was a native of the lighthouse, just like her. Since the other party could learn, why couldn't she? Coupled with what the other party had said to her before, she soon became active. Could it be that the other party was practicing a secret that was not passed on, which required some prerequisites? Did he have to become someone close to the other party, or become a believer of the other party? Fixu couldn't help but start to think wildly in her mind. If that was the case, she might be able to ask the light bearer. Woodcrossing didn't know that Fixu was thinking a lot, nor did he know that the other party seemed to have seen through everything and planned to go back to the light bearer after the mission was over. At this time, the Wasteland Hunters began to clean up the current mess. since wood crossing had almost eliminated the surrounding extreme beasts. Even the ones that were not dead had no ability to resist. After they finished the job, they completely lost their lives. Of course, in order to deal with the extreme beasts that may come back from outside, or the extreme beasts that may come out of the fishy vortex channel, defensive fortifications must be built. With the cooperation of everyone, an artificial defense line was quickly built at the entrance of the rift valley in the basin, and the entrance of the fishy vortex channel was also deployed. Wood crossing, when are you going to go in? After everything was done, Mark returned to wood crossing and asked. Bayuki also looked at wood crossing. When he heard this, she knew that the fishy vortex channel would release a jamming signal to prevent people who were not of the same kind from entering. Moreover, she was a little surprised now. According to the big commotion on the ground, there were no extreme beasts coming out of the fishy vortex channel. It was impossible before. She had also been here many times. Every time she was testing, extreme beasts would appear in the fishy vortex channel. Now, not to mention the king level extreme beasts, even the low level snake dogs did not come out. Wood crossing looked around and saw that they had done a good job of fortifications, so he said, I'll go in right away. Be prepared for possible emergencies. Although with his current strength, there should be no accidents, but they still asked them to prepare. Okay. Mark nodded heavily. Can you take us in? If possible, I hope I can help. Bayuki looked at wood crossing. Chapter 192 Underground World. The members of Bayuki's team are much stronger than the wasteland hunters. Even Mark is not as good as them. After all, they are humans who have cultivated spiritual power. As for Bayuki herself, her strength is at least as strong as that of a regular soul emperor, or even a soul saint. But wood crossing did not let them follow. In addition to being unsure whether he could bring people in, there was another point, that no one knew the situation inside. In case of uncontrollable factors, he could get out at any time, but bringing others would be restrictive. Then you be careful. After being rejected, Bayuki did not insist. Wood crossing, be careful. Mark also warned. Wood crossing nodded, and then looked at the bottomless passage in front of him, that was emitting a strange light. The soul power surged, and the dazzling soul ring under his feet gradually rose again. Immediately afterwards, his body emerged with the phantom of the thorny eel form. That's right, it was the thorny eel martial spirit. He found that his origin heart could transform into more than just the martial spirit form of the Douluo world, as long as it was anything that appeared in the anime. This was also what he had tested on a whim 2 days ago. He even tested worlds he had never been to, such as the Ten-Tails in the Naruto world, the Angels in the Super God world, and even the 7-colored sky-swallowing python in the Duppo world. Of course, although he could use it, he could not inherit the opponent's strength, so he could only use the attack corresponding to his current strength. Looking at wood crossing in front of him, the soul ring that emerged under his feet, although everyone had seen it before, but seeing it again, they also felt it was very magical. Then they saw the form of the devouring beast appear behind the other party, and they were all shocked. When they reacted and wanted to ask, they saw wood crossing had already jumped down to the fishy vortex channel. The channel was very huge, and there was a strange red light everywhere around it, and there were countless tangled vines on both sides. As wood crossing continued to dive, the light became brighter and brighter, and the vines became thicker and thicker. It took about 10 minutes of landing for wood crossing to see the ground, which was enough to imagine how deep the devouring beast's lair was. As he was about to approach the ground, his martial soul changed again, from the original thorny eel to a pair of white wings. It was also, when he just changed his martial soul, that he felt a huge repulsive force coming, as if trying to bounce him out. Feeling this huge repulsive force, I think it is a reason why Bayuki mentioned in the anime that only by becoming an ecological chimera can you enter here. However, this is not a difficult task for wood crossing. After his martial soul changed again and became a calyx beast, the repulsive force disappeared, allowing him to land steadily on the ground. When he stepped into it, although he had expected it in his heart, he was shocked by the scene in front of him. This is not like the lair of the extreme beast, but more like an underground world. Not only is it endless, but there are also countless red glowing meatballs around. The meatballs are big and small, the small one is only as big as a football, and the big one is bigger than a mountain. From the meatballs, you can vaguely see various extreme beasts, and it is obvious that the extreme beasts are being bred inside. Under these tumors, there are countless vines, which are intricate, but without exception, they all stretch towards the center of the underground. It is simply a huge production base. No wonder humans cannot resist the manor ecology, and will become the end of the world. With such a scale, even if there is no ability to absorb life essence to repair itself, it can still give people a headache. Even if Wu Crossing wants to destroy so many meatballs with his current strength, it will take at least 10 days and a half months. Of course, from the vines under the meatballs, it can be seen that this is a pipeline for cultivating extreme beasts. Judging from his experience of many animations, novels, and movies, as long as he destroys the source, these meatballs for cultivating extreme beasts should be automatically destroyed. Therefore, he does not need to destroy insignificant things. Rushing towards the center of the underground world, Wu Crossing encountered countless extreme beasts on the way, but they were all easily destroyed by him. After arriving at the center for about half an hour, he finally saw the source of the fishy vortex. It was a huge flower. A single petal on it was larger than a football field. Its entire body was glowing with a strange red light. Below it, there were devouring beasts that looked like mountain mists. From the auras emitted by these devouring beasts, it could be felt that they were king level devouring beasts. 1, 2, 3, 7 king level devouring beasts. The mana flower in the middle should have reached the emperor level. Wu Crossing took a glance and had an idea in his mind. Roar. While Wu Crossing was looking at the devouring beasts and the mana flower in front of him, the 7 king level devouring beasts roared at Wu Crossing, and the low level devouring beasts around him seemed to be releasing a signal as the mana flower fluttered. In an instant, these devouring beasts rushed towards Wu Crossing like crazy, determined to tear Wu Crossing, who was disguised as a calyx beast martial spirit, into pieces. Looking at the devouring beasts rushing towards him, Wu Crossing gently raised his right hand, and the 6th golden soul ring lit up again. 6th soul skill, electronic sound cannon. Originally, countless spheres with lightning appeared around him, making a sizzling sound. It was the skill of the calyx beast. A piercing sound rang out, and countless spheres rushed towards the rushing devouring beast like lasers. Wherever they passed, all the devouring beasts were vaporized. Even if some escaped, they were destroyed by the lightning cannons fired by Wu Crossing later. All fears come from insufficient firepower. Boom. 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 There were deafening noises everywhere, and flames were everywhere. Although he released abilities similar to those of the calyx beast, he had his own soul power. Under this continuous bombardment, deep pits appeared on the ground, and wisps of green smoke floated around. After his powerful group skill output, the tens of thousands of devouring beasts were all wiped out. Roar. Seeing that all the devouring beasts were wiped out, the remaining 7 king level devouring beasts roared again. The huge bodies also moved at this moment. Some of them emitted a beam of light from their mouths, and some rushed towards Wu Crossing with their huge bodies. Every step he took could feel like an earthquake, and every step he took brought up gravel. Although these king level devouring beasts looked very clumsy, their speed was not slow at all. It didn't take long for them to arrive in front of Wu Crossing. Wu Crossing remained calm and didn't care about the king level devouring beasts rushing towards him, as well as the devouring beasts that sprayed energy balls at him. He raised his hands, and his 5th soul ring lit up. 5th soul skill, Cannon of Annihilation. Although it was only the 5th soul skill, the lightning ball that appeared above his head was unprecedentedly huge. Chapter 193 Mission completed. Wu Crossing still used the skills of the calyx beast, but through the distraction, control of the 7 treasures glazed sect, the soul skills became more powerful and had a wider range. The huge ball of light flickered, and the laser turned into a black shadow, causing the surrounding space to vibrate. Wherever it passed, there was nothingness. The laser engulfed these king level beasts, and instantly turned into light, and disappeared into the sky. Boom. The laser not only continued to be powerful, but also hit the emperor level mana flower directly, and the entire underground world began to shake. The rocks above were shattered by the loud noise and fell down. At the same time, even the hunters on the ground and the Bayuki team felt the shaking of the earth. Sensing this huge movement, everyone's faces were full of surprise. What happened below that made such a big noise? Fiksu under the mask showed a worried look. The ground could feel such a big movement, so how exaggerated was it in the underground world? Wood crossing, you can't be in trouble. Fiksu silently thought in her heart. Bayuki and Mark felt the same way. The other party was the hope of mankind, so they naturally didn't want him to have any accidents. When the dust cleared, Wood Crossing also truly understood the law of smoke without injury. The mana flower was not affected by his soul skills and was intact. There was a layer of strange red shield in front of it. Of course, it seemed so, but the careful Wood Crossing saw at a glance that the remaining soul power on the shield was corroding the shield. Although it was not very obvious, it was certain that the mana flower had no immunity to external energy. The reason why it was intact was that it was filled with life essence. In this case, try the 7 killing sword. Wood Crossing looked at the mana flower and raised his mouth slightly. His Calyx Beast's martial soul also transformed into the martial soul of the 7 killing sword. This time Wood Crossing clearly felt that the repulsive force had disappeared. It seemed that the mana flower mobilized the life essence to reduce the repulsive force. 7 giant swords formed behind him, flashing endless light and emitting a terrifying aura of killing. It seemed that the mana flower also sensed the breath of the 7 killing swords in front of it, and the huge bud kept shaking and emitting bursts of light. The petals began to shrink and form a bud shape, but in the center, red light could be seen flashing, as if something was brewing. As for the condensed energy of the mana flower, Wood Crossing didn't care. He folded his hands, leaving only the 10 fingers and the middle finger of his right hand. In his soft chant, the 7 giant swords actually bloomed with light, and then they actually merged together to form an even larger sword. Wood Crossing shouted softly. The great sword smashed down at the mana flower with unparalleled sword energy. The terrifying sword energy scraped the top of the surface, leaving long sword marks, and countless gravel fell down and landed on the ground. At this time, the mana flower seemed to have completed its energy storage, and the buds bloomed, and a huge red light shot towards the giant sword that was smashing down at it. Boom. Another deafening sound came, and the whole underground world echoed, rushing straight to the ground along the fishy vortex channel. What happened below? Hearing the rumbling sound coming from the fishy vortex channel, everyone took a breath of cold air. The noise was too loud. It could actually be transmitted directly to the ground. Mark and Bayuki did not speak, but from the solemn expressions of the two, it can be seen that both sides were restless. The red light collided with the giant sword, and at the center point, a layer of airflow could be seen with the naked eye, and they were in confrontation with each other. However, this situation did not last too long. Soon the red energy body of the mana flower began to dissipate, and the giant sword was gradually pressing down the red light ball in front of it. Feeling the feedback of energy, Wood Crossing exerted force with both hands, and the soul power in his body also poured out and transmitted to the giant sword. Where he stepped, spider web-like cracks appeared. Crack, crack. 2 soft sounds were heard, and Wood Crossing's feet sank into it, but at the same time, the red light ball was also broken, and the giant sword came to the top of the mana flower. As if sensing a huge crisis, the center of the mana flower's bud kept flashing red light, trying to gather new energy to resist. But the giant sword was unstoppable, constantly smashing it down, and finally touched its petals. At this time, Wood Crossing also used his most peak strength without any reservation. Destroy it. Wood Crossing shouted loudly, and the soul power in his body surged out again. The giant sword flashed a stronger light again, and in a flash, it directly chopped the petals, buds, roots of the mana flower, and even the ground. Boom. A huge sound came again, and the mana flower was split into 2, and the terrifying soul power also began to gradually turn into nothingness under the invasion. In less than a minute, the huge mana flower disappeared, leaving only a passage that was thousands of meters long and hundreds of meters wide. It was the mark left by the giant sword. When destroying the mana flower, Wood Crossing couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Fortunately, he had foresight. If he only had the strength of a Soul King or a Soul Emperor, he really couldn't get rid of the mana flower. As the mana flower disappeared, a prompt sound of the system task completion came from his mind. It's finally over. It's really not easy. Wood Crossing's soul power was also consumed a lot at this time, and it was almost gone. In order to confirm the situation, he did not sit down to recover immediately, but looked around. As he expected, the mana flower was destroyed, and the pipelines for cultivating the devouring beasts completely darkened from the original red light, and countless meatballs also became dead silent, as if the entire underground world had turned into darkness. Seeing this scene, Wood Crossing finally relaxed. If the mana flower was destroyed, these meatballs that cultivated the devouring beasts could continue to survive. Then how long would he have to destroy them? Fortunately, the knowledge I had learned in my previous life was not biased, and I had foresight. Wood Crossing rested for about half an hour, before he stood up from the ground and slowly walked towards the exit of the fishy vortex. At the first moment, when the mana flower was destroyed, the remaining extreme devouring beasts on the ground ran around like crazy. What's going on? Looking at the group of extreme devouring beasts that were constantly running around and seemed to be confused, Xing, who was receiving the ground images on the lighthouse, was puzzled. I don't know, they seem to have all lost their direction. Everyone in the command room also looked puzzled. Could it be that the guy succeeded? Xing subconsciously thought. Chapter 194 Return to the lighthouse. As the violent vibration passed, the people on the ground soon found that the entrance of the fishy vortex passage had dimmed the original strange red light and finally turned gray. Captain, look. The hunters who discovered this strange phenomenon immediately reported to Mark. Bayuki and others who heard the shout followed the gaze and suddenly flashed a trace of joy in their hearts. Did Wood Crossing succeed? However, the waiting time was long. After an hour, there was no movement, and Wood Crossing's figure was gone. This made the originally happy crowd start to worry. Could there be an accident below? Especially Fiksu. She was very nervous. She didn't know why she became like this. She seemed to care about the other party's safety. Just when everyone was discussing whether to send someone down to take a look, because they found that the fishy vortex passage had lost the repulsive force, suddenly a figure rushed out from the entrance. Wood Crossing. Seeing that it was Wood Crossing, everyone was surprised, and Fiksu's hanging heart was also relaxed. Yeah. Wood Crossing nodded. Seeing Wood Crossing return safely, Mark immediately asked, "What's the situation down there now?" "Fortunately, I have fulfilled my mission." Wood Crossing smiled and replied, "We have completely destroyed the Xing zone. You won't have to worry about the mana ecosystem anymore." Really? Everyone who heard this, whether it was Mark, or his team members, or Bayuki and her team members, were all very excited. They have been waiting for this day for a long time. Of course. Wood Crossing nodded affirmatively, and then said, "However, Xing zone has been destroyed, but there are still a large number of devouring beasts surviving on the ground, and you still need to deal with them. It's not that easy to become the master of this continent again." Haha, don't worry about that. Mark laughed. As long as Xing zone was destroyed, they could no longer cultivate devouring beasts. They were confident that they could wipe out all those devouring beasts. The same was true for Bayuki. Xing zone was destroyed, and it was only a matter of time to clean up the remaining devouring beasts on the ground. In that case, let's go back, Wood Crossing ordered. Although he had recovered some of his soul power, the consumption of the battle just now was indeed not small, so how could he recover so quickly? Okay. Mark also saw that Wood Crossing was a little tired, and immediately asked the hunters to pack up their equipment and prepare to return to the lighthouse. "Do you want to go to the lighthouse to take a look?" When the hunters were excitedly packing up and returning, Wood Crossing looked at Bayuki and invited him. Bayuki shook her head and said, "Some other day. I have to tell the survivors on the ground about the destruction of Xing zone first. The destruction of Xing zone is very important information for both the survivors of the lighthouse and the survivors on the ground, and she has to share it with everyone." "Okay, see you later." Wood Crossing understood what Bayuki was thinking, and did not insist, and said with a fist. Bayuki also clasped his fists to Wood Crossing in a friendly manner. "See you later." Then he watched the other party get on the armored vehicle. "Boss, are you tempted?" Looking at the hunters leaving, his boss had no intention of coming back to his senses, and Xiaodao on the side teased with a smile. Bayuki couldn't help but roll his eyes at Xiaodao when he heard it. This little girl didn't learn anything good, but only learned these bad things. She is already an old woman of many years old. If her body cells had not been injected with anti-aging drugs, she would have become an old woman. She is still attracted to men? What are you thinking? If she were still young, she might admire him, but now, she is already past that age. Go back. Bayuki looked at the departing convoy again, uttered a few words, and then turned around and got on his jeep. When Zhao and the others saw it, they didn't say much and got on the jeep. Today's events were indeed shocking enough for them. Not only did they see an unprecedentedly powerful man who was like a god of war, but he even destroyed Xing, making them eager to tell the survivors on the ground about this joy. From now on, they will stand up again on this continent. Wu Crossing, who got on the armored vehicle, leaned on his seat and closed his eyes to rest. Fixu, who was next to him, did not disturb his rest, but the eyes under the mask kept staring at the other party in a trance. The other party really did it and really destroyed Xing. From now on, they will no longer have to live in hiding. Thinking about the other party's confident look before, thinking about the other party's godlike posture, thinking about the beautiful life in the future, her eyes began to become blurred unconsciously. There are many people who have the same idea as Fixu, and the little loli Erica is one of them. Now she can't wait to go back to the lighthouse, to go to the Dawn Hall with Wu Crossing to have a baby. Women admire the strong. This is their nature, not to mention that they live in the end of the world, facing a man who is like a god who has come to destroy Xing and rebuild their home. Who wouldn't be tempted? Who doesn't like him? In addition, Wu Crossing's appearance and figure are perfect. Even if there is no destruction of Xing, they don't mind going to the Dawn Hall with him to have fun once. No, how can one time be enough? At least give birth to a number of children of the Wasteland Hunter team. The convoy sped along the road and soon re-exited the canyon. The signal in the armored vehicle was restored and reconnected to the command center of the lighthouse. Lighthouse, calling the lighthouse. This is the Wasteland Hunter team. Please reply if you receive it. Mark turned on the communication equipment and called the lighthouse. When the convoy drove out of the canyon, the lighthouse command center also found the returning convoy of Wasteland Hunters at the first time. Jingnan immediately replied, the lighthouse received it. How is Mark's mission going? The mission was successfully completed. Mark looked at Wu Crossing who was resting, and his face was full of happy smiles. When Jingnan heard it, although he had some guesses about the changes of the extreme beasts on the ground, he was sure that the fishy vortex had been destroyed. A knowing smile appeared on her pretty face. The lighthouse will lower the number 01 elevator for you. Welcome your return. Jingnan sorted out her excited heart and spoke slowly. Okay. Mark responded. Soon, when the lighthouse lowered the elevator, Jingnan also contacted the city lord Morgan at the first time to share the joy of completing the mission. Upon learning that the mission was completed, Morgan announced this exciting news to the entire lighthouse. When Wu Crossing heard that the members of the Wasteland Hunter team had returned safely, he personally destroyed the fishy vortex. Whether it was the upper people or the dust people, they all gathered at the edge of the lighthouse, waiting for the heroes to return triumphantly. Chapter 195 The Light Bearer Wants Help. As for the Light Bearer, he had been waiting at the elevator with a group of believers, waiting for the return of our Lord. Wu Crossing, we are back. Mark drove the armored vehicle onto the elevator and then called out to Wu Crossing who was still resting. Back? So soon? Wu Crossing opened his eyes when he heard it. Yeah. Mark nodded and then said, let's go out. Okay. Wu Crossing didn't think much about it and followed Mark out of the armored vehicle and came to the elevator. As the elevator slowly rose, Wu Crossing soon saw the light bearer, a group of high-level officials, and many upper and lower people surrounding the elevator. Welcome to my lord. As soon as the elevator stopped, the light bearer was the first to kneel on the ground and called out to Wu Crossing. Welcome to my lord. The believers around him also looked like they were praying sincerely, and they spoke one after another. When these believers spoke, many upper and lower people also knelt on the ground, with extremely pious worship on their faces. The supernatural phenomena Wu Crossing showed had already convinced many people. Now, under his personal leadership, the Xing was destroyed, which naturally made everyone worship from the bottom of their hearts. Watching the upper and lower people kneeling, Morgan and other high-level officials did not say anything. They had already acquiesced in their hearts, not to mention that the other party was indeed the savior. It was just that as high-level officials, they did not kneel down like those upper and lower people. However, the light bearer was different. Her status was extremely high, but she had long since determined that Wu Crossing was her master, so she would not care about so many rules and regulations. Even if Wu Crossing asked her to do anything, she would do it without hesitation. Feeling the shouts of the survivors, Wu Crossing felt good. Although he didn't care much about believers or not, he was very happy to be worshipped by so many humans. After all, he was just a human with a diary system, and his age was less than 25 years old. How could he be compared with the old monster who had lived for countless years? Amid the cheers of many upper and lower people, Wu Crossing walked down from the lift and followed a group of lighthouse executives to the conference room under everyone's gaze. Morgan looked at the man in front of him and was amazed. Finally, he said, "I didn't expect that you really succeeded. I thank you on behalf of all the survivors of the lighthouse. You don't have to be so polite. I did this just for the light bearer and for all mankind." Wu Crossing waved his hand and said. He did not say that he was doing it for the diary task, but for the light bearer and for the future of all mankind. Hearing the words of my lord, the light bearer's eyes were full of spring under the mask. Although she knew that my lord came for the diary task, she felt extremely happy to let my lord say that it was for herself. Going back tonight, I must serve my lord well, and it would be best to take this opportunity to get pregnant with the crystal of life given by my lord. Because she knew that my lord would leave this world soon after completing the task, and she didn't know when they would meet again. Only giving birth to a child for my lord would be the greatest happiness in her heart. Morgan nodded and then said, "Tomorrow I will issue a notice to everyone in the lighthouse, handing over the position of City Lord to Fandi." Although for him, he would rather inherit the position of City Lord with Mark than with Fandi, the bearer of light. But since he made a deal with the other party last time, he could only fulfill this promise. Of course, the man in front of him valued Fandi so much, and it was not a bad thing to let the bearer of light become the city lord. At least, with this godlike man behind Fandi, the future of the lighthouse will definitely not be bad. With so many supplies, the survivors of the lighthouse will only live a better life. Okay, you can handle it. Facing Morgan's answer, Wu Crossing nodded. Although Mark is the protagonist of the world of spirit cages, the bearer of light is his pen pal and a loyal maid. He will only support the other party to sit on the position of city lord. Morgan responded and then asked about the mission. Wu Crossing did not explain too much. Mark had already told the process of this mission one by one, but he missed the things in the later fishy passage. But whether it is the changes of the devouring beast on the ground or the withering of the mana flower in the Xing channel, it means that Xing has indeed been destroyed. If there is nothing else, I will go back first. After talking about this mission, Wu Crossing laughed. Morgan immediately tried to persuade him to stay. "You are the savior of the lighthouse and the savior of mankind. We have held a celebration banquet for you at the top farm. Forget it, I'm not interested in this." Wu Crossing shook his head. What he hates most is formal occasions, and he has to maintain his image at all times. Wouldn't it be nice for him to go back earlier and exercise with the little maid? Morgan was stunned when he saw Wu Crossing refused. He didn't expect Wu Crossing to refuse, nor did he expect the other party to not participate. You have to know that the purpose of holding this is also to give the other party greater influence and to make the other party more firmly bound to the lighthouse. If the most important person doesn't attend, what's the point of holding such a celebration banquet? Morgan subconsciously gave Mark a look, and Mark immediately understood and said, "Wu Crossing, if you don't attend, then this banquet can't be held." "Yes, Wu Crossing, if you don't attend, how can we not attend?" Ranbing also nodded and agreed. Although they also went to this mission, they were just there to watch the show. Listening to the two people's advice, Wu Crossing's eyes subconsciously swept over the Higuangs, and then glanced at Jingnan and Jessica, and asked, "Is there anything I need to do to attend the banquet?" Wu Crossing's little action naturally did not escape the Higuangs, who always kept him in mind. Following his gaze, she saw that my master was looking at Jingnan and Jessica. An idea emerged in her mind. She, who was not interested in the celebration banquet, became interested. Of course, she decided to lend a helping hand to my master. Morgan shook his head and said, "No need to do anything. It's just a celebration banquet. My lord, Fandy also hopes that you can attend." When Morgan finished speaking, the light bearer bowed respectfully. Seeing that the light bearer had already spoken, Wood Crossing nodded and said, "Okay, then I will attend. Just notify me when the time comes. I will go up." "Okay," Morgan said cheerfully. The reason why he wanted Wood Crossing to attend the celebration banquet was actually another reason. That was the matter of his son Charles. Chapter 196 Celebration Banquet. At night, the sky farm at the top of the lighthouse was brightly lit, illuminating the beautiful green environment around it. It was rare to have such a beautiful area in the end times. In the past, it carried the food of the entire lighthouse, but they believed that in the near future, the ground would also reappear the prosperity of the old world. When Wood Crossing came to the sky farm, he immediately attracted a group of senior executives to greet him. Unlike in the meeting room, they all changed into casual clothes, and even the wasteland hunters changed out of combat uniforms. The destruction of the fishy vortex was a cause for celebration for the people in the lighthouse and all the survivors. Wood Crossing was an important contributor to this mission. It is no exaggeration to say that he is the savior of mankind. His arrival naturally attracted countless senior executives to come forward to toast and greet, and also attracted many women to come and chat in sexy dresses. Among them, most of them were members of the female wasteland hunters, and their style was much more free and easy than those female senior executives. After all, seeing the other party's godlike means with their own eyes, who doesn't want to take advantage of the celebration banquet in front of them to have something beyond friendship with the other party? Even if they are rejected, they can still narrow the distance between the two parties, right? Therefore, after toasting with a group of senior executives, Wood Crossing was surrounded by a group of beautiful women. Looking at the situation on Wood Crossing's side, and then seeing everyone's happy faces from the bottom of their hearts, Mark sighed in his heart. The banquet like tonight is his biggest wish in his life. Unexpectedly, it was finally achieved today, so he was very convinced of Wood Crossing. "Haha, you kid, why are you drinking alone here?" Just as Mark was sighing, a rough voice sounded in his ears, and then he felt a thick palm patted him heavily on the shoulder. "Teacher." Mark didn't need to look back to know that the person coming was his teacher, Chief Instructor Ellen. Ellen now also had a cheerful and happy face, and everything today seemed like a dream. "Why don't you go over and toast?" Ellen laughed, looking at Wood Crossing's position, and raised his eyebrows at Mark. Mark took a look and said with a wry smile, "Wouldn't it be a crime if I went over now?" Now he was surrounded by his female subordinates. Even his adjutant, Ranbing, was wearing a blue evening gown. "Haha, that's right." Ellen laughed again and then said, "But to be honest, that boy's really outstanding, and he does what he says. Not only is he strong enough to destroy Xing, he is also handsome and has the style of me when I was young." Mark rolled his eyes when he heard the teacher's answer. He didn't expect his teacher to be so shameless. But considering that today is a day worth celebrating, he didn't point out his teacher's thick skin. At the same time, Wood Crossing finally dealt with these enthusiastic young ladies, and his eyes began to patrol. He had been at the banquet for so long, but he didn't notice his little maiden Fixu. But he saw Jingnan and Jessica. It must be said that the two queens who changed into evening gowns were really gorgeous. But they were not as bold as those female wasteland hunters who came forward to flirt and seduce people. Of course, Engineer Jessica wanted to come over and chat with Wood Crossing, but because she found that she couldn't squeeze in at all, she was drinking alone with a glass of wine next to her. "What's wrong? Are you so unhappy?" Jingnan came to Jessica's side. The two women were both civilian senior officials of the lighthouse and had a good relationship. "No," Jessica denied. She naturally wouldn't say that she was unhappy because she couldn't talk to Wood Crossing. "Your expression doesn't say that." Jingnan looked at Jessica with amusement and then looked at Wood Crossing with her beautiful eyes and smiled. "Are you moved? Are you not?" Jessica did not deny it. A handsome guy like Wood Crossing, who has an extraordinary temperament that all the survivors of the lighthouse don't have, which woman would not be moved? Moreover, the other party showed the incredible supernatural power, which made them who lived in the end times irresistible. Jingnan looked at Wu Crossing, sighed, and said, "We are not from the same world, so it's useless to be moved." She always had a feeling that Wu Crossing didn't seem to be a person from the end of the world, but more like a savior from another world. That's not necessarily true. Maybe my lord likes it? Just after Jingnan answered, a voice sounded in the ears of the two women. Lord Fandi. The two women who heard this subconsciously turned their heads, but found that the light bearer had appeared beside them at some point. Of course, this is not the point. The point is that Fandi's current dress surprised them. They saw that the other party had changed out of her law enforcement outfit at the lighthouse and put on a blue evening dress. The mask that had been worn was also removed, showing her charming face. The light bearer nodded, looked in the direction of Wu Crossing, and said with a pious face, "You are right. My lord is not a god from this world, but from another world." What? The light bearer's words shocked Jingnan and Jessica. As for the relationship between the light bearer and Wu Crossing, everyone understands that, although they don't know why the other party appeared, she regarded him as my master. But one thing is certain, that is, the two sides must have had a connection before. Now that the light bearer said that Wu Crossing came from another world, there was no need to deceive them, because the supernatural energy displayed by the other party did not need to edit any lies at all. My master is a god from the Douluo world, and this time he came to save us. The light bearer's words once again shocked the two royal sisters. That space ring was also given to you by Wu Crossing. After Jessica came back to her senses, she suddenly thought of something and asked. That's right. The light bearer nodded, and then spread out her white palm, which was wearing the soul guide ring given to her by Wu Crossing. Then, under the gaze of the two women, a red soul ring also emerged under her feet. Looking at the red soul ring surrounding the light bearer, the two women widened their eyes. They had seen this strange phenomenon before Wu Crossing set out on the mission. At this moment, the two women were completely sure of Wu Crossing's identity. Otherwise, how could the light bearer have the same ability? Lord Fanti, what did you mean by that sentence just now? Jessica asked again. My lord needs to bless you, and you meet my lord's requirements. The light bearer did not explain too much, but replied lightly. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 197. You are here. While the three women were chatting, Wu Crossing also came here. When he saw the little maid's dress, he was stunned. He didn't expect that she would have a different temptation after wearing an evening dress. It seems that he can experience a little maid with a different flavor tonight. My lord. When the light bearer saw the flash of light from Wu Crossing, a trace of joy flashed in his heart, and he said respectfully, Wu Crossing. Jingnan and Jessica also greeted each other. Although they were not as solemn as the light bearer, their tone was still very respectful. Wu Crossing nodded and asked curiously, what are you talking about? You know, in the anime, the light bearer didn't get along well with Jingnan and Jessica, but how come they got together at the dinner now? This made him very strange. Of course, he couldn't imagine that the reason why his little maid would find Jingnan and Jessica was entirely because he said that he liked beautiful women of the royal sister type. Jingnan and Jessica are both queen types, and they are also very beautiful, especially Jingnan, the queen of queens. For my master, she has to lure her here anyway. My master, Fandi took the initiative to reveal your identity. The light bearer did not hide anything, and told the topic just discussed. She originally thought that my master would be angry about this, but she didn't expect Wu Crossing to just be stunned for a moment and said, it doesn't matter. He didn't really care about his identity and origin. Wu Crossing, are you really an alien? Jingnan, who was standing aside, heard the conversation between the two and his eyes flickered again. Of course. Wu Crossing smiled and replied, otherwise, how could I use the ability that you think is very unscientific? Jingnan was speechless for a while. The huge firebird summoned by the other party was indeed very unscientific to them. Wu Crossing, just now the city lord Fandi said that you are from another world. Can you tell us about it? Jessica said with stars in her eyes. It is well known that women gossip. After learning about Wu Crossing's situation, Jessica couldn't help but want to understand it urgently. But before Wu Crossing could speak, the light bearer had already said, only by becoming a loyal believer of my lord can you understand my lord's information. Wu Crossing looked at the light bearer's serious look and said this. He was stunned for a moment, but he didn't say anything. Instead, he looked at Jessica with a smile on his face. To be honest, apart from the light bearer, Fixu was the one he wanted to uncover the mysterious mask the most, and Jingnan was his favorite type. As for Jessica, the queen, he also liked her, but he liked her straightforward character. Can I? Jessica looked at Wu Crossing, her pretty face full of expectations. Not to mention becoming the other party's believer. Even if she became the other party's woman, she would be willing to do it. If it weren't for the fact that this was a banquet, she couldn't help but flirt with the other party and lure the other party to the morning hall. No problem. Wu Crossing looked at Jessica's pretty face and smiled. Wu. Jessica has met my master. Upon hearing this, Jessica immediately changed her words. With her slim figure and fiery red hair, she also bowed slightly. Jingnan looked at all this and was a little confused. To be honest, she couldn't do it like Jessica. But now she didn't know what to say, so she could only be stunned. Looking at the stunned Jingnan, Wu Crossing smiled slightly and said, no need to do that. If you are not used to it, just call me Wu Crossing. Jingnan was relieved when she heard this. Fortunately, the other party didn't force her to call him that. In fact, Wu Crossing didn't like being called my master either. It felt a bit like a charlatan. But Fandi felt that not calling him that was disrespectful to him, so she just let it go. You can't force your obedient little maid to do something she doesn't like to do, right? As for the identity of my master, I will tell you later, the light bearer said when he saw that things were done. Wu Xing was at ease. After all, if he asked them to explain, it would be impossible for them to understand clearly without a while. As for the diary invitation card, he was not in a hurry to give it to them. In his eyes, the diary invitation card could only belong to his woman. Fixu had already reserved one, and there were 2 left, so he was more casual. After talking for a while, Wu Crossing left because Morgan came to him. He knew the reason why Morgan came to him, and it was as expected. It was about his son Charles. I will let Fandi handle Charles's matter. Wu Crossing pretended to be silent for a moment and replied. He would definitely not let Charles go. When the light bearer completely sat firmly on the position of the city lord, he would let the other party solve it secretly. Anyone who has watched the anime knows what kind of person Charles is. This person is completely bad to the bone. Not to mention oppressing the people, he used his identity to do all kinds of bad things, and even in order to win the position of the city lord, he didn't even care about his father's life. For such a person, how could Wu Crossing keep him? Even if he had the ability to control the other party's puppet, he would not use it. He kept Charles before, just so that Morgan could completely give up the power of the light bearer. Otherwise, how could he live until now? Morgan didn't know what Wu Crossing was thinking, and after hearing that, he thanked him a few times with gratitude. It's a pity that as his father, he is dedicated to the people, but his son is a heinous criminal. Looking at Morgan who was leaving, Wu Crossing couldn't help shaking his head. For Morgan, he was able to disregard family affection and pass the position of city lord to Mark. This move was still very admirable. But fate is a trick. Charles is really not suitable to live. The banquet went on until late unknowingly. When Wu Crossing was planning to look for Fixu everywhere, the light bearer had already come forward and told him where Fixu was. After hearing the light bearer's answer, Wu Crossing subconsciously looked at the little maid and gave her a big compliment, then said goodbye to everyone and left first. When he returned to his residence, Wu Crossing subconsciously reached out and pushed the door of the room and found that it was indeed not locked. Immediately afterwards, he pushed open the door of the room and looked inside, and indeed saw the pretty figure standing on the balcony. Seeing Fixu's elaborate attire, Wu Crossing swallowed subconsciously. She was also wearing an evening gown, but it was a thin silver dress that fully revealed her proud figure, especially the collarbone exposed at the back, which was flawless, like a work of art, making people want to touch it. As if she noticed that the door of the room was pushed open, Fixu's body trembled slightly, and then she slowly turned around. Chapter 198 Emotional Snow. When the other party turned around, Wood Crossing grumbled and swallowed unconsciously. Fixu was not wearing the mask at this time, revealing a cold but stunning face, and the light makeup on it showed that she was carefully dressed. In addition, there was a ribbon tied around the waist of the silver dress, which outlined her already proud figure to the fullest. Through the tulle, you can see the translucent black stockings with tree branch patterns wrapped around them, which looks very sexy. She is wearing a pair of simple white high heels, which perfectly show the other party's slender legs. Wood Crossing couldn't take his eyes off Fixu's tight combat uniform after seeing her change into a sexy evening dress. Although he has many women, each of them is a top beauty. The different costumes in the two worlds will also bring different sensory impacts to people. This is also one of the reasons why he especially likes to let his little maid wear law enforcement uniforms and attack the city from behind. The temptation of uniforms will never be out of date for men. Another point is that Fixu's face is no different from what he imagined before, and even more so. Cold and stunning, like the plum blossom that stands out from the crowd. With both aloof character and charming charm, his heart was burning with excitement when he thought that such a fierce horse was willing to bloom the most beautiful side for him. Fixu, who was stared at closely by Wood Crossing, had a barely noticeable blush on her delicate makeup, but she was not happy about his performance. "I was wondering why I couldn't find you at the banquet, so you came here." Wood Crossing felt that it was not very gentlemanly to keep looking at him like this, so he spoke. When Fixu heard Wood Crossing say that he would look for her at the banquet, she felt a little sweet in her heart and replied softly, "I didn't attend the banquet because I didn't want others to see my true face." Wood Crossing was stunned at first, then he smiled and teased, "So I'm really honored to be able to appreciate Miss Fixu's true face." Facing Wood Crossing's teasing, Fixu's face flashed a little red again, but she didn't reply to him. Although she had fallen in love with him and planned to bloom her face for Wood Crossing in this life, she was still a woman after all, so how could she say it out loud? "Since Miss Fixu loves me so much, I will make up for it with tonight's banquet." Wood Crossing naturally understood Fixu's intention, and after he finished speaking with a smile, 2 wine glasses and a bottle of red wine appeared in his hands. With such a beautiful scene and a woman willing to bloom for him, he had to drink 2 glasses to liven up the atmosphere. Here, they both poured half a glass of red wine, and Wood Crossing handed the glass over. Fixu looked at the red wine handed to her, hesitated for a moment, and then took it with her fair and soft hands. In fact, she didn't like drinking very much. As the best sniper in the Wasteland Hunter team, she could say that she didn't touch alcohol at all because it would affect her judgment and performance. Even though she had been on so many missions before, she never touched alcohol when the Wasteland Hunter team celebrated. But today was different. For Wood Crossing, she could show her face, which had not been shown in front of people for more than 10 years, to him. She could also drink a few glasses with him for Wood Crossing. Moreover, she could use the effect of alcohol to express her true feelings. If you don't like to drink, don't force it. Wood Crossing noticed Fixu's hesitation and said quickly, "No." Fixu shook her head, then picked up the wine glass in her hand and drank it all. Seeing Fixu drink it all, Wood Crossing was stunned for a moment, but soon saw the other party holding back his face. Ahem. Fixu was drinking for the first time. She drank half a cup. Although the alcohol content was not high, she could not stand the after effect of the alcohol and coughed repeatedly. Wood Crossing reached out and quickly smoothed her flawless back, then said with a smile, "This is not how you drink. I like it." Fixu blushed immediately, but she was always arrogant and unwilling to admit defeat. "Okay." Looking at the arrogant Fixu, Wood Crossing laughed again until she stopped coughing and let go of his hand. Fixu, who knew that she had made a joke, stopped talking about drinking and changed the subject. "I heard Fandy talk about your identity. Are you leaving soon?" "Yeah." Wood Crossing was no exception to Fixu's words, because when he came out of the meeting room, he saw her looking for the light bearer. Fixu, who got the confirmation, immediately paused and didn't know what she was thinking. It was not until a long time later that she said, "When are you leaving?" 3 days later, Wucrossing thought about it and told his plan. After completing the task, he can leave the Lingang world at any time. The reason why he decided to stay for another 3 days was to let his little maid secure the position of the city lord. "Will you come back?" Fixu's heart trembled suddenly, and her beautiful eyes looked at Wucrossing in a daze. "Come back," Wucrossing said affirmatively. Even if there is no task in this world, he still has the Lingang world experience card. What's more, there is such a loyal little maid who treats him with respect and regards him as a belief, and it is impossible for her to ignore him. Hearing that Wucrossing will come back, Fixu's tense heart is also slightly relaxed. "Wucrossing, I like you." After another moment of silence, Fixu took advantage of the alcohol burning in her heart and finally spoke out her feelings. Although the two sides have been together for a short time, love is like this, and there is no reason to speak of it. The other party's temperament and the other party's strength deeply attracted her, which made her, who had never been interested in men, loosen up. Coupled with the law of the lighthouse, she was moved, and it was even more uncontrollable. She finally understood why Captain Mark's sister preferred to be with her lover, and didn't care about the punishment of being burned by fire. That feeling, that sweetness, that sense of happiness, can really make people desperate, hoping to be together, even if there is a bottomless abyss ahead. Today in the Xing passage, she hadn't seen Wucrossing for a long time, and she had an impulse to jump down regardless of her own safety. So after she finished speaking under the influence of alcohol, she looked at the other party seriously. Looking at Fixu's serious expression, cold and stunning face, sexy and small red lips, and the deepness between the huge pandas, Wucrossing also drank some wine, which made his already hot heart burn even more. Without thinking, he put his arms around the other's waist and pulled Fixu into his arms. "I like you too," Wucrossing said softly, and then kissed the sexy little mouth. Well, in an instant, with the passionate kiss of the two, the alcohol quickly aroused their emotions. Chapter 199 Fixu's Battlesuit. A new day has arrived. The sun shines into the room through the balcony. Wucrossing slowly wakes up. When he opens his eyes, he immediately feels the delicate body in his arms. He can't help but lower his head. After last night's bombardment, Fixu is still sleeping. Wucrossing didn't intend to wake her up, but there was a knock on the door outside, waking Fixu up from her sleep. "My lord, Fandi wants to see you." The voice of the light bearer came. Hearing the voice of the light bearer, Fixu suddenly got up and quickly wanted to take the clothes on the ground to put on, but she was surprised to find that the evening dress from last night was not intact. She remembered everything from last night and was dumbfounded. Wucrossing, who watched Fixu quickly get up and look for clothes to wear, couldn't help laughing, especially when she was stunned by the evening dress that he had rudely torn off. As if she had sensed Wucrossing's smile, Fixu's face turned red, and then she immediately got into the quilt and wrapped herself tightly. "Come in." Wucrossing smiled again at this, and then said to the Higuangs outside. Hearing this, the Higuangs outside immediately put her hand on the identification card next to her, and with a light beep, the door of the room opened. The Higuangs who came in took a look at my master and Fixu under the quilt, and didn't say much. Fixu was able to enter my master's room yesterday, and a large part of the reason was her credit. It can be said that the Higuangs is Wucrossing's most loyal believer. As long as my master says so, she will even serve with Fixu without hesitation. "Get up." Seeing that the Higuangs was holding a set of combat uniforms in her hand, Wucrossing immediately understood that his little maid was really thoughtful, and then smiled and patted Fixu under the quilt. After hearing Wucrossing's words, Fixu slowly poked her head out of the quilt. When she saw the unchanged expression of the light bearer, she was relieved. "Fixu, congratulations on becoming my lord's woman. This is your combat uniform." The light bearer walked towards the bedside with a cat-like step, and then placed Fixu's combat uniform and the mask on it on the table at the bedside. After doing all this, the light bearer slowly retreated, and said to Wucrossing, "My lord, Morgan will teach the ceremony of the Lord of Fandi City later." "Well, I know, I will go with Fixu later." Wucrossing nodded and replied. The light bearer responded, and then took his leave and left. He never said anything about the two of them. As the light bearer left, Fiksu dared to show herself completely, and quickly put on the combat uniform at the bedside on herself. The speed made Wu Crossing stunned. People who didn't know would think that the devouring beast had invaded, a complete military style. "I'll go out first. I'll wait for you next door." Fiksu put on her combat uniform and mask, then said something, and went back to her room. Wait. Wu Crossing did not let Fiksu leave, but grabbed her. Hearing this, Fiksu looked at Wu Crossing in confusion. Wu Crossing did not answer immediately. He took out the invitation card from the diary warehouse and said, "Didn't I tell you last time that I would teach you the art of summoning? Now you are my woman. I will give you an opportunity." Opportunity? Fiksu was stunned again. This word was very new to her, and she didn't understand it very well. Agree. Wu Crossing said, and then confirmed to Fiksu to use the diary invitation card. Fiksu, who was in a daze, had not yet reacted when she heard a mechanical voice in her mind. She subconsciously followed what Wu Crossing said, and silently said agree in her heart. Immediately afterwards, a huge amount of knowledge began to flow into her mind. As the information in her mind was digested, Fiksu stood there in a daze. Although she had heard Fandi say that Wu Crossing was a god from another world, she never expected that he had such a terrifying ability. Through the information in the diary copy, she soon received everything about the diary. She finally understood why Wu Crossing could use that supernatural power, and why the light bearer admired him so much. All of this came from the diary system. Of course, this is not the most important thing. The most important point is that Wu Crossing actually gave her such a precious thing. No, it is an opportunity. At this moment, she felt extremely happy and extremely lucky. Wu Crossing, thank you. Fiksu's voice was choked with sobs, and she was completely moved. Such a precious opportunity, such a secret thing. He was willing to share it with her, willing to give her a copy. How could she not be excited? Everyone can say it, but if you really want to thank me, you have to take actual action. Wu Crossing smiled and joked, but his eyes were looking up and down at Fiksu's combat uniform. Feeling Wu Crossing's hot gaze, Fiksu under the mask, her cold face flushed again. Through her understanding of the diary copy just now, she also knew some of Wu Crossing's special hobbies. Now seeing the other party's eyes looking up and down again, how could she not know what he was thinking? It was obvious that he wanted to repeat what happened last night. No wonder the light bearer kept singing loudly a few days ago. It made sense. We can't keep Fandi waiting for long. Although she had a lot of aftertaste about what happened last night and experienced the happiness of a woman, it was broad daylight now and there was no alcohol to stimulate her. Even if she was tempted, she would stop the impulse. But Wu Crossing didn't care so much. Since the light bearer came in with Fiksu's combat uniform early in the morning, she must have had some intentions. After all, she had experienced his strength and knew his interests and hobbies. Otherwise, why would she come here with Fiksu's combat uniform early in the morning and talk about the ceremony of teaching the city lord? It would be redundant. We just need to be quick. There is enough time. Wu Crossing pulled Fiksu into his arms with both hands. Fiksu felt her face burning, and even her neck began to turn red. Even though she was wearing a mask, she still subconsciously closed her eyes and dared not look at Wu Crossing. It must be said that Fiksu's combat uniform is very seductive. Anyway, Wu Crossing is very interested in it, especially wearing a mask, which gives people a mysterious feeling. Then without saying much, he moved his hand slightly, turned the other party from his arms to lie down, and started to attack the city again. The pleasant voice suddenly rang throughout the room. The light bearer did not go far away. Listening to the voice coming from inside, a flash of excitement flashed in his heart. My lord is so powerful that he should conquer them. Chapter 200 Return to Douluo. 3 days passed in a flash, and the light bearer officially became the lord of the lighthouse city, taking over all the order here. On the same day, she abolished the 3 previous survival rules. Because the fishy vortex was destroyed, they no longer had to suffer from the extreme beasts, and the survivors on the ground gradually surfaced, and this move was supported by most people. In addition, the original Light and Shadow Church also became the Xing Church, believing in our Lord Wood Crossing. The Dawn Hall also no longer exists, and the free love of the old world is restored. But in order to praise the great achievements of our Lord, it was specially changed to the Blessing Hall. In fact, the meanings of the two are not much different, but not everyone can enter the Blessing Hall, and the conditions are extremely harsh. People who must make contributions to the lighthouse must also be believers who are loyal to our Lord all their lives, and only single young women can be blessed. Of course, men also have it, but it is not carried out in the Blessing Hall. But the Xing Church Hall gives certain supernatural abilities. The light bearer is a diary holder, and now Fixu is also, through a series of rewards and points such as punching in. Even if Wood Crossing is not in this world, it can be maintained. Although the items in the diary system mall are only allowed to be traded between diary holders, there are still some loopholes. For example, the cultivation methods and massive knowledge in other worlds, such as other worlds techniques and gene optimization fluids, can be transmitted to others through experience or production. When Wood Crossing learned about the purpose of the Blessing Hall, he opposed it at the first time. Wouldn't he become a sewing machine? But seeing the pious look of the little maid, he really couldn't bear to refuse the rules she promulgated as a city lord, and finally agreed to it. It was not because he coveted the bodies of Jingnan, Jessica, and the little lolly Erica. Well, it was definitely not. Instead, these women coveted his body and wanted to have children with him. Author, reader, you are really shameless. When these new rules were promulgated, the people of the entire lighthouse, both men and women, were boiling. Supernatural abilities. After seeing Wood Crossing's strength, who would not be tempted by this? Who doesn't want to summon the exaggerated giant flaming bird to fight for themselves? Although Xingsuan has been completely destroyed, there are still countless extreme beasts on the ground. If you want to completely become the master of this continent again, there is still a long way to go. On the second day of the announcement, some outstanding wasteland hunters, such as Mark and Ranbing, obtained genetic modification through contribution points, and their strength has made a qualitative leap. Similar to Bayuki, this world already has it, so it is easier. Although the most desired supernatural phenomenon of being able to release martial spirits like Wood Crossing did not exist, the strength of the body has been unprecedentedly increased. At least before, one punch could hit 500 pounds, but now it can be multiplied several times. Before, it could jump a height of 1.5 meters, but now it can easily jump 5 meters. With such an exaggerated reward, a group of wasteland hunters couldn't sit still, and they were in high spirits. They hoped that the new city lord would issue the task of exterminating the extreme beasts on the ground as soon as possible. Even those former upper people and dust people couldn't help but want to participate in it, contribute to the lighthouse, and get enough contribution points so that they can also become one of them. Looking at the inspired people of the lighthouse, the light bearer attributed all this to my lord. Even if someone wants her to step down now, I'm afraid no one would be willing to do so. After all, whoever wins the hearts of the people wins the world. Not to mention that from the day the light bearer became the city lord, even the quality of food and the collection of supplies have been much better. In the past, the dust people were the lowest class and had no human rights at all. Now, not only is there no distinction between the upper people and the dust people, but everything can be obtained as long as you work hard. Therefore, it also led to more admiration for Wood Crossing, and it was he who made everyone look forward to the future. While giving genetic modification, the Blessing Hall also welcomed a figure on the second day. What Wood Crossing didn't expect was that the first woman who entered the Blessing Hall through contribution points was not Jessica, the chief engineer of the lighthouse, nor the little lolly Erica, but Jingnan, the commander-in-chief of the navigation control of the lighthouse and the person in charge of the feasibility study. She doesn't like fighting and killing, so she has been doing clerical work in the lighthouse, and she also has her own ideas about the future of mankind. Just like now, everyone in the lighthouse is full of longing for the future, with a smile from the heart on their faces. All of this is due to Wood Crossing's contribution. Because of this, she particularly admires him. In addition, whether it is strength or appearance, he is flawless, which is in line with the aesthetics of all women. She hopes to give her a child before he leaves. and working diligently in the lighthouse, she has accumulated enough contribution points. In order to avoid missing this opportunity, she used her contribution points to exchange for the opportunity to enter the blessing hall the next day. Looking at this beautiful and charming lady, what else can he say? It's done. As for whether he can win the prize, that's not within his consideration. But then again, he has done it with his woman so many times, and he didn't deliberately avoid it every time, but no one won the prize. He is a little suspicious whether there is something wrong with him. But with his understanding of online articles and the heart of origin, he guessed that it might be because his genes are particularly strong, so no one can bear to get pregnant. One day in the future, his guess was indeed verified, and the secret behind the diary system was also discovered. With great support for the little maid, Wuhun Crossing did not forget to coach Fixu. What made him laugh and cry was that when he awakened her martial soul turned out to be a heavy sniper rifle. This was in line with her arrogant personality and her style of doing things. Is this the martial soul? Fixu stared at the Barrett-style sniper rifle that emerged from her palm, her face full of shock. Well, this is your martial soul. Wuhun Crossing nodded, looking at the sniper rifle martial soul in front of him, and a strange feeling also emerged in his heart. As expected of her, the awakened martial souls are so different. The martial soul of the light bearer is relatively normal, of course. This is for the martial souls in the Douluo world. She awakened a martial soul similar to that of a god, but her image is a bit like his. I don't know if it is because of her inner piety that this scene appears. Until the last day, before leaving, Wuhun Crossing had a great battle with the little maiden Fixu, which made him feel the refreshing battle for the first time. Looking at the two women who had fallen into a coma, he pondered for a moment, then chose to communicate with the system and return to Douluo world. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.